Hello, everyone. We're going to be starting in just a moment. Sorry, there is no music at the moment for, well, technical reasons. Thank you. We're going to be starting in about 5 seconds here. Bear with, bear with. And hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. It is September 11th of 2022, Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we welcome everyone who is part of our audience. If this is the first time you are joining us, we want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday we look out for your voices. We listen to you. You can reach us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You can call into the show at 607-242-1582 to tell us what you think about the issues that are affecting us all. We find it important. We look forward to hearing every one of your voices, and we look forward to hearing your comments about what's going on in the world. There's so much that we should and do need to talk about today that is happening. The world is getting crazy, and that's not a good thing for anyone. It's getting worse and worse as we go. And there's a lot of things we would definitely want to talk about today that I think a lot of people are going to find to be important and interesting. We are up, right? Yeah, okay. Sorry, had to check. YouTube, Facebook, they're not being the best in making sure we get the information out to you. Now, obviously, we want to start off today talking about what happened with Queen Elizabeth. Now, it's a huge, huge thing. And we want to give our condolences to everyone in the United Kingdom, to those in Canada and Australia, and the many places around the world that are sharing in the loss along with the monarchy of England. It is sad to see that she has passed. She has been an incredible figure for the world in terms of her statesmanship, in terms of her ability, and so many people. And this will have a direct effect on us here in the United... Whoops, where's my face? There I am. This is going to have a direct impact here in the United States on each and every one of us. I don't think a lot of people realize that as much as they should. You see, how do I explain? I was having a conversation, I believe it was on the Liberty First Foundation Roundtable on Friday, and one of my associates was mentioning that they didn't see the importance in America about the loss of the Queen Elizabeth II, and the position of the monarchy in the world. And I want to make sure people understand this because I know there's a lot of Americans that don't get that. The fact is that the role of the monarchy is something that Americans don't really understand as much as we should, because we don't have an equivalent kind of position. This is a person that is both above and separate of every other feature of the government. The importance of the monarchy in England and why it's important for the United States is they are able to hold diplomatic discussions, international conversations that the government can't have. This way, so if any time, say, President Obama is pissing off the Prime Minister of England, well, the Queen can step in, the monarchy can step in and still have a conversation to invite the U.S. president over to England and therefore to introduce diplomatic relations that otherwise would stop. That's an important go-between. It is a way to be able to speak to various nations around the world that otherwise could not be spoken to, a way to introduce politics into a government that otherwise would be rejecting it. They are a critical part of the peacemaking efforts and the stability globally of the entire world. And it is important for the United States that there is a strong monarch in the United Kingdom, just like in the United States, we need a strong leader here for global stability. It is a means to be able to unify the world, to ratchet down the politics, and still be able to maintain peace, or at least as much peace as the world is ever able to have. So while a lot of Americans may say, well, some Americans may say, well, they don't care about the Queen, you should, because without a strong monarch, there is less global stability in the world, just like when the United States has a weak leader, as an example, Joe Biden, then we have greater instability in the world, more terrorism, more wars, more problems. And so that's why it's very important and why we take great interest in this. And it's also sad because this is still yet another example that we are seeing progressivism step into the politics of the world and negatively influencing it. A lot of people may not have noticed this, that it was The Guardian that announced, and they portrayed Joe Biden's comments about the Queen. They talked about Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter. Do you notice something that's missing in these conversations? What happened to President Bush? What happened to President Trump? Where are their comments? They are presidents of the United States. They are talking about our greatest ally and a dignitary amongst the world, and yet they made statements. Statements were made. Condolences were portrayed, but they are showing the English people who may not be aware of U.S. politics as intimately, just like we're not intimately aware of the politics in the United Kingdom. And they're saying that all the Republicans just didn't care. The Republicans didn't make a comment. That's not good for international relations. This is a problem, and this is what happens when you introduce progressivism at so many levels in our world and in various governments, when we allow it to spread from the United States to other countries. It diminishes the United States, and it causes rifts between the people of the United States and other countries because of this progressive ideology and this push towards progressivism. And I think that's important. That's terrifying to me. And it's something that we need to correct. But let me go on. I want to talk about a little bit about the international outlook before we get to the domestic outlook about whether or not we're marching towards a second civil war. Talking about the U.S. economy and whether that's aiding in that. Talking about Kamala Harris, who suddenly is back in the news. Why in the hell is Kamala Harris back in the news? Good question. We're going to answer that for you. And there's so much more. And of course, any of your comments we want to hear as well. But let's take a moment to step back in something that you probably didn't notice in the news that's going to affect every American life. North Korea. North Korea has been arming Russia with weapons. Now, a lot of people, I've heard a couple of people talk to me when I was on the Rory Sauter roundtable, when I was on with the Liberty First Foundation roundtable on Friday. People said, well, I don't understand why that's such a big deal. Why is that important? Because it's not North Korea that's giving weapons to Russia. It's China. China is arming Russia. Now, this is a big deal because this is creating a greater conflict. Obviously, Ukraine is a proxy war, but it's been predominantly an economic proxy war. NATO, the United States alone has given $54 billion of your tax dollars to the Ukraine, increasing inflation in the United States. In England, they've provided $18 billion. The European Union has put in about $20 billion. This is a lot of money being put in for an economic proxy war, which has been hurting each of these nations. This is why we see inflation increasing, why we're in a global recession at this time. But with Russia using North Korea to give weapons to Russia, well, that brings in a more military conflict. It escalates the situation. It is putting an alignment between Russia, North Korea, China against the United States and the Western allies and NATO. It is intensifying the conflict and is more deeply entrenching these foreign nations against us. This is important because China is the one who's making all of our goods. Remember, the United States is a service economy. Thank you for that, Barack Obama. We're a service economy. If China is working deeply and closely with Russia to further its interests and to weaken the United States, and at the same time, China is looking at trade with the U.S., and they know that all they have to do is slow down. They don't even have to stop. Just slow down the goods that they are making for the United States, and the United States will become weaker, more deeply into a recession. We will have higher inflation, and our infrastructure breaks down. This is critical that we have to pay attention to this, and the major news media bypassed this. They didn't pay attention at all. They just ignored this. Now, obviously, there has been a lot of news that has come out. We're still reeling from the fact that Joe Biden has decided to be Emperor Palpatine, and in his quest to try and imitate 1939 Germany and demonize Republicans and 40% of America. Well, that's one problem, man. That's a big one. And there are other issues going on. But this is critical. When we see that these nations are coming together, we are getting closer to a scenario, I believe, that will be 3 regional wars simultaneously happening. And this is important. It's not World War III. We've said this on this program before. It's 3 regional wars all happening at the same time. Not just Russia, Ukraine, but China, Taiwan, North Korea versus South Korea, possibly even Japan. And then there's the wild card of Iran, with or without their nuclear deal, funding global terror and destabilizing the Middle East. These are the problems that are facing the Biden-Harris administration, that are facing America at this time, and why we need strong leadership, and why the monarchy in England can be so critical to work behind the channels outside of the politics to try and introduce some stability. This is a critical time in the world, and we need our leaders to step up because it's getting worse. And it's not just that North Korea is saying, oh, well, they're going to give weapons to Russia. I don't know if a lot of people notice this. In addition, North Korea has put in a doctrine that if for some reason Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, the dictator of North Korea, were to die, especially if he were to be assassinated or under questionable circumstances, North Korea is going to fire their nuclear weapons automatically. And this cannot be stopped. This is irrevocable, which now escalates the conversations between the United States and North Korea. By the way, if you notice, North Korea isn't talking to the Biden-Harris administration. Biden-Harris have been trying to talk to North Korea. They won't respond because they don't respect Joe Biden. For as much as we were told he was an international leader and respected around the world, North Korea won't talk to him any more than Saudi Arabia talked to him. They're not having a conversation. And they have just escalated the problems because it's not just that North Korea is threatening Japan and South Korea, our allies that we are committed to protecting. Not only are they threatening them with hypersonic missiles given to them by China, but now we know that they have instituted an automatic nuclear war option, which means your life is in danger. Every life in the world is in danger because of this stopgap measure that Kim Jong-un has put in, and that demands that the rest of the world must have a greater conversation with North Korea. North Korea is doing this obviously to try and be appeased. North Korea wants food. They want energy, and in particular, their leadership want the creature comforts that you and I in America have every day. You know, he wants to get a bottle of scotch. He wants to go and see movies. He wants things that we do every day that are considered absolutely normal in America. But in North Korea, no one gets to do that except the top of the leadership. And so this is his bargaining chip. His bargaining chip is a dead man switch that says if you do not respond to him, if you do not negotiate with him, if you don't buy off North Korea, well, the potential for nuclear war exists. This is something that we believe has been instituted by China to disrupt the Biden-Harris administration. Because they have no international policy, because they are seen as weak leaders around the world, well, the answer is very simple. North Korea gets to push their agenda and further confuse and distract the Biden-Harris administration that has no focus, that has been everywhere. They're so weak that they created the first terrorist nation in the world, Afghanistan, elevating terrorists in Al-Qaeda, in the Taliban, to the level of world leaders and provided them with the weapons and the ammunition and the money for a global military. I believe the fourth largest military in the world. Hi, Jen. It's good to see you here with us. And I thank you for being the first one to comment today. So, and Jen, if you came in late, I just want to mention that we're trying to bring ourselves up. There is a lot happening domestically. I want to talk about the Civil War. But first, I wanted to bring us up to date about what's happening internationally because it's important. And I think it's really a big deal. Hang on. Let's see. Jan says, also, don't forget that the 4 lives lost because of Hillary ignored their pleas. Well, there's more than just the 4 lives. I mean, and I have never forgotten that in Afghanistan, not only did we have the weak leadership of Hillary Clinton, which is part of the Obama administration's weakness, that helped to key in and set the dominoes in place for what we're seeing today. She didn't just cost the lives of our servicemen and an ambassador, but also we see that the Biden-Harris administration abandoned thousands of Americans. I've never forgotten about it. He still won't talk about this. Today he's talking about remembering 9/11, but he won't remember the Americans 1 year ago that he threw to the wolves in the Taliban, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda. He won't talk about the fact that he created a terrorist nation and armed that terrorist nation with $80 billion worth of weapons and money. This is why we're seeing North Korea take the opportunity now to leverage the Biden-Harris administration to basically coerce them into giving North Korea more of what it wants without ever having to negotiate because of their dead man switch that has now been put in place by Kim Jong-un. This is a big deal. We need strong leadership to pay attention to this. We need to create an international policy to be able to address these issues. We can't just wing it. We can't just fly off the top of off the seat of our pants, like with Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan, which only increased international tensions. And I definitely believe that the actions in North Korea today are still part of the ripple of effects that are happening because Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan for absolutely no reason with no goal in place. People can tell me that you think I'm wrong. If you do, you can comment or you can call in to 607-242-1582 and tell me why. What if he dies of natural causes? Well, it's not clear, and that's part of the problem. According to the article, and you can see this in the links will be in the description below, you can go to Politico and they are talking about this. But the new law is more so saying that if he dies for aggressive reasons, not natural death, but if it's an aggressive reason, if it's something from a foreign power or believed to be a foreign power, that's when it would kick into place. Thank you, Mike Bowie, for raising that question. It's a good question. But again, how North Korea defines what is a natural death or not, that's anyone's guess. And remember, this is a nation that lives off of propaganda. They're still waging the Korean War against the United States. It's never ended. So anyone dies in that nation, they constantly and always say, well, it's because of the Americans. So he could die a natural death and we would still be threatened and said that we were the cause. John Cordisco, hello, John. He joins us and he says, what's up, threats to democracy? Rest in peace, Queen Elizabeth. Yeah. So these are threats, and John, I agree. These are threats to our democracy. They're as omnipresent as what we are seeing in our domestically with the division of Americans between those who obey the progressive ideology and those who say, well, no, I want to question my government. I have answers I want to receive. They want to exercise their First Amendment rights, which obviously Joe Biden does not believe in and has been adamant in trying to demonize. And this is part of the reason that we have so many price pressures going on. Internationally, we are seeing that over and over again, as this has been reported, we see that every time in Europe, they are showing us the window of what is coming to the United States, that there is going to be greater inflation. Please do not think that just because we were on summer vacation and because people had less purchases, because everyone's on vacation, we saw productivity down, we saw the number of unemployment increase. They're going to try and tell you that, no, the economy is great, just like they told you in July, in June, in May. So the economy is great, doesn't matter. Gas is down, except it's still up 45% since the day that Joe Biden got in office. Oil is still up 70% from the day that Joe Biden got in office. The economy is not well. We haven't got our jobs back, and now we have lost jobs. We have 3.7% unemployment. Unemployment is increasing because of the costs and inflation and the higher interest rates that are affecting everyone. We're seeing mortgages down 11%. This is huge. This is huge. And Jan mentions that feds have already said they're going to raise by 0.75% points again in the next month, which means that's how much your credit cards are going to go up about a full interest rate point, if not 2.5. This is your car loans, your credit cards, your mortgages, anything that you've borrowed money on. This is going to affect you and every business. And the poor are going to be the worst hit because all of the cost of goods are going to skyrocket. They're all going up. Inflation is going to hit that 15% number, 18% in Europe, according to the Bank of England. And we have to remember, as we are seeing being reported around the world, all these predictions, the reality is worse consistently across the world than every prediction that is being made and every single one of the indicators that we get. Inflation is rising faster than they are able to keep track of. And we've been telling you this since January of 2022. And this is the problem. Now, John says, it seems we are the threats now. The revolution will not be televised, and it won't be on the internet either because of the censorship that we are seeing being put in place. Joe Biden is now looking to increase the amount of censorship under the guise of, we're going to reform Article 230. We're going to change the way the internet is done. The big internet giants have too much power. And so the answer is to create government censorship instead of leaving it up to Mark Zuckerberg and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. This is important. These things are all connected, folks. And I'm trying to I'm trying to put it together to you because these are the news media, the major news media wants you to look at these things as each one being absolutely independent. They have nothing to do with each other. That is a lie. These are all connected factors. Because if it starts with weak leadership that has no plan, no domestic plan, no international plan, and if you have a leader that is just winging it and their only goal is to get reelected, and their only goal is to have something that they can try and claim as a victory so they can get to that next election, and they don't understand or consider the consequences of what they are doing, then guess what? The rest of the world is going to react, and it's going to set off a chain reaction of negative effects. This is why we have inflation as high as we do. Joe Biden didn't consider, the Democrats in Congress did not consider what's the consequence of just spending money, your money, willy-nilly on all of their hopes and dreams and wishes that have no concrete benefit to you, neither short-term nor long-term. And they just spent the money. They did what Andrew Yang, what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, what Bernie Sanders had suggested. They just printed money, making your money worth less and increasing the inflation that you now have to suffer through. That the poor are being more harshly hit than anyone else. As they promise, they're going to take care of you. They're promising they're going to take care of the poor as they make their lives worse. And that ripples across to the rest of the world. The United States is in high inflation, so is the rest of the world. The United States is in a recession, so is the rest of the world. Because again, we're a service economy, we're not a manufacturer. So we have to buy everyone else's goods, and if we're not buying, their economies are lagging as well. Thank you, President Obama, for putting us into this bottleneck that we can't get out. No wonder we had slow growth, because we can't influence the growth. And that's a negative. So this is why this is important. Even though it may seem like, well, this is international, it's domestic as well. It has a direct influence on your life. If the other nations in the world, Germany, the European Union, China, if they can't get the energy that they need cheaply, they can't make the goods that we buy here in the United States cheaply. And the United States can't make the stuff as an alternative. Therefore, that increases the cost of everything around the world. That's inflation. That causes a recession. That means poor people are going to be hurt. It means the middle class are going to be hurt. That's how this ties together. Again, it starts with leadership. And no one in the news media wants to address that. And we're seeing that, how does that also affect? Because the United States, there's a global rush towards energy. Everyone needs energy. And we are competing. The United States is competing with Germany, is competing with the United Kingdom, is competing with China to get the oil we need to keep our factories running, because green energy doesn't work. If it did, we wouldn't be in the problems we have right now. If green energy was such a great solution, if it was so reliable, the United States, at least California, New York, that have completely gone over to this green energy ideology, we would be fine. We wouldn't have energy shortages. But the fact is, what do we have? Rolling blackouts in California. We have a problem. Green energy is not working. The electrical grid isn't working. And God forbid if you have electric vehicles, because the electric vehicles are coming out, which first of all are all connected to giant companies that instantly say, oh yeah, you can't charge your electric car tomorrow because of a rolling blackout in your area, because the community can't handle charging your electric vehicles, because green energy can't make enough power and the electric grid can't handle people having electric cars charged up. This is the fact that we have. But you've been sold on this idea that green energy will solve everything because it's reliable, even though it's not. And it'll make up all the power that we need. And it can't. That's true in Germany, where they're turning on their coal-fired power plants. They're turning on their nuclear power plants. They already had 50% of the facilities making wind and solar energy, and it doesn't work. Same thing in France, across Europe, around the world. This is a problem. And that's, again, because we have weak leadership that is so concerned about pushing a political ideology, they're not looking at the reality that people are living through. In California, where they went whole hog and said it's green energy everywhere, it isn't working. The people are having brownouts and blackouts, and they can't use the green vehicles that they said that they needed to have. People have spent all their money on this and they can't use it, and it's not effective. This is important, folks. And, if you don't believe me, go back, look at Planet of the Humans by it was a documentary produced by Michael Moore. And if you think he's on the left, you're underestimating how far left he is. And he will tell you himself, green energy does not work. And if you don't want to believe any of that, just look at California. And the evidence is there before us. It is clear. How about, you know what? Don't believe me. How about we go to Harvard? And we're going to come to the comments in just 1 second. But how about you go to Harvard University? Okay, this is the Harvard Gazette talking about California and the dreams of green energy. And one of the things which is in this comment, and I want to highlight one of the conversations here, they mention that, quote, I don't think the electric supply will be a big problem. The distribution will be. So you can't distribute the electricity. And mind you, that's if you could get enough energy from solar and wind, which we can't. Utilities are going to have to install smart transformers in a lot of neighborhoods. If 60% of the cars in a neighborhood are electric and they all come home at 7 o'clock and hook up, the transformers can't handle the surge in demand. You need a smart transformer that will be able to synchronize supply and demand and charge three of the cars between 7 and 10, and 3 more between 10 and 1, and 3 more between 1 and 4, and the last batch between 4 and 7. Think about that for a second. You are going to be at the behest of when some computer chip of some company decides when you can use your car, when you can charge back up. You went to work, you came home, you're being good, and you're obeying the Governor Newsom. You got the electric vehicle just like Stephen Colbert wanted you to do, just like Pete Buttigieg told you to do. You come home, and now you are trapped in your home until some computer chip says, you deserve to be able to get out of your house again. We're going to charge your car. Now you can leave again. God forbid you have an emergency in your family. God forbid you need to, get food or you wanted to go watch a movie. You want to see friends. God forbid you had anything else going on in your life. Once you get home, you are stuck and dependent until that green energy decides it's your turn to be able to get charged back up. This is the problem when we don't question what the bad leaders are saying. And this is dividing our nation because you're not the only one. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm not the only one who's saying, well, that doesn't make any sense. What if I have to go out and, my kid's at playing baseball after school. He's in an after school sport. And you have to go pick up that child after you got back from work. But your car can't charge up because the utilities and the government have decided it's not your turn. You don't deserve to go back out and to live your life. How's your kid getting home? Did they think about that? See, no, they're saying, well, you just have to work. You just have to change your life and your life of your kids to match up with what the government wants to give you. And this is the reality. This is the answer from Harvard. The answer from Harvard is you will tailor your life to when the government decides it's your turn to live. And you don't get a choice. Too bad if you can't charge up your vehicle until 4 a.m. I guess your kid's going to sit in that baseball field waiting for you until you show up. Too bad you can't charge up the vehicle, which they promised you would be able to do at a moment's notice. Too bad they forget to mention, and this article does mention it, that you need hundreds of thousands of charging stations every 100 to 200 miles in every direction across this nation. Otherwise, you won't be able to charge your car. You won't be able to go anywhere because the batteries don't work, because they're not efficient. They're not as efficient as gas. That's absolutely true. And if you want to go anywhere, you need a charging station every roughly 100 to 200 miles to make sure that you have enough power to get back home, let alone to get to your destination. This is the problem. This is about controlling you. So again, if you need a charging station every 100 to 200 miles, and they have to be installed everywhere in the country, otherwise you can't travel, and you're stuck at home until the government decides it's okay for your vehicle to charge back up. Well, yes, John mentions it correctly. This is about control. The government's now controlling your life. They're controlling how far you can go, and they're controlling when you can go. That's not freedom. That is a dictatorship. That is authoritarian. No, you don't need a special card to get from point A to point B like you do in many, many other nations around the world. No, your travel isn't being restricted by some government authorization in terms of some kind of card. Instead, you're being restricted by denying you the ability to even try. You don't need, it's not like you need a special pass to go from one state to another. No, you can get to the other state. Too bad you can't drive there. Too bad you can't use the energy you need to get there. And remember, in California, New York, by 2035, 2050, they are outlawing gas-powered vehicles, so you won't have another option. They're making it illegal for you to have a choice, to be able to independently travel as you choose, when you choose. And I'm not the only one. I think everyone here, people are realizing that and saying, wait a minute, that's not freedom. That is the worst of dictatorship and authoritarianism. We reject that. And the answer we're hearing from Governor Newsom, from Governor Whitmer, from appointed Governor Kathy Hochul, from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is, if you complain, well, you're obviously evil, a domestic terrorist, an extremist, and you're the problem for saying, I want to have my freedom. I don't want to be at the beck and call and the decision-making of the government on when I can live my life. That's terrifying, folks. That's an absolutely terrifying idea. And yet, that is what's being put out there. I want to come back to some of the comments here. So, Jan is saying, I wonder who is telling them making things cost more will lower prices. Well, the idea is, Jan, that if you raise up the cost enough, fewer people will buy it. And eventually, so that will dry out, that will absorb all of the supply and drop the demand. And then when demand goes down, the prices go down. So it's a cycle. And what you have to do is you have to drive it up. You have to kill the marketplace so that the demand will drop down, so then the price will drop down. Basically, you have to hurt, especially, and this is going to affect the poorest of the poor and the middle class first. You have to make them to price things out of their ability to buy and to harm their quality of life so that eventually, somewhere down the road, if they survive through all that, then they can afford it. That's who's telling them to do that. That's the ideology they're looking at. They're looking at a curve where you're going to suffer today, and maybe somewhere down in the future, you might get lucky enough to be able to afford the thing that they priced out of your lifestyle, which destroys businesses as well. It's really a stupid idea. John Cordisco mentions they're taking the power of social media companies and giving it to themselves. I'm going to get to that in terms of the censorship because Kamala Harris, amazingly, she's back in the news. So is Joe Biden, talking about Article 230. And we want to address that in a little bit in the show. But yeah, the government is trying to take over disinformation. Let me go further. And remember, folks, if you don't agree, it's okay. The phone, nope, we just got a call. Hello, and thank you for calling into No Soundbites Allowed. This is your host, Michael Voss. And may I ask, who is speaking?
Michael, John Cordisco. Here's Johnny.
Hey, John, what's going on?
Oh, just listening to some of your commentary and some of the comments in the chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's what they're doing in California with the cars. They didn't outlaw them. They just outlawed the sale. So eventually, through attrition, I guess is their way of doing it. The gas-powered vehicles will.
John, what's the difference between if you outlaw anyone being able to buy something and say, "Oh, well, your grandfather, do you own it?" But we've also gotten rid of all the gas stations, and so you can't access the way to get the fuel. You're restricted in being able to use this. It's the same thing as saying we're outlawing the vehicle itself. I don't see a distinction there.
I'm intrigued by the fact that when Trump was president, the states were screaming like California and New York, sanctuary cities, states' rights, states' rights, states' rights. And now that the court has ruled on Dobbs versus Mississippi in abortion, they're screaming, why are you giving it to the states? These people are such hypocrites. It's just amazing to me.
Well, I'm not. I want to be clear. I believe in states' rights, and I'm not saying that California can't do this, but I am saying here's the consequence of them doing this and the lie they are pushing to make it happen.
Well, you and I, we've lived a little bit of life.
Yeah.
And you've been to a lot of places, seen a lot of things. Me too. You were overseas. We know as we get older, actions have consequences. Now, the voters of California, now comes your consequence. You went through social media and got sound bites, and the progressives are the best, and we're stomping out racism, and we're changing the climate change issue, and we're doing all these wonderful things. Okay, be careful what you wish for, because you may well get it. Now, they're going to have to suffer, and they're going to have to suffer. But the problem is, though, we're in the same bathtub, so to speak, and they let the water out. And all of us are going to go down with them. And I'm afraid it's going to happen. But maybe it's going to be bad enough where people in California will wake up, but I'm not optimistic.
See, but here's the thing. It's not just California. To be able to do this, they have to have charging stations across the nation. We know progressives want this. They want to essentially outlaw, and they've said it, they want to outlaw oil and gas. We've heard President Obama say he wants to necessarily skyrocket electricity to prevent people from using it. Joe Biden has said that he wants to decimate the coal industry and energy production. They've already cut back on oil and gas production in the pipelines to bring it to us. They're destroying an entire industry and the ability of Americans to live the quality of life we have.
We have a trump card that the Europeans don't have. I mean, we'll call it the West. The West is United States and Europe.
Mm-hmm.
We have a trump card the Europeans don't have. We are sitting on enough oil and gas we have more than Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So the fact of the matter is, when this whole thing comes crashing down, and people have to go back to oil and gas because the whole thing's a disaster, we'll have the resources to do that, and Europe won't.
That's one way. And see, I don't mind if our leadership were smart enough to at least detail to us. If the plan was, well, we want to use the oil and gas of all the other countries before we tap our own, okay, that at least makes military sense. That's national security. I get that. But we could do that and keep up with the pace of what we need today. We have enough natural gas in the United States, untapped, for 125 years at least.
That's kind of my point, is that the natural resources that we do have that were isolated for centuries from European wars, and all the resources we have are going to save ourselves from these morons.
Only if we have people who are recognizing that this is something that's necessary for the future, that we have to conserve this and we have to be prepared for this. But they are training kids today to, I'll give you an example. You know that we have the JRES break, the 1 minute YouTube videos out there that John Rastusha does for me. It's fantastic. He was just talking.
I've seen some of them, yeah.
Okay. Well, yesterday he was talking about Hassan Piker, a Twitch streamer who's very popular with the left, had danced because the Queen died, which I think is insulting and disgusting, and I denounced that completely. John made a short video about that, and denouncing it as well. one of the comments on my channel, which is exclusively meant for adults, a child decided to try and attack John personally about that video. And this is the thing. Children are being taught by the left, by Twitch streamers, as well as teachers, by the media that is out there, whether it's entertainment or social media, and they are being trained to believe. One of the things this child said in the comments is, well, I don't, he won't cry for colonizers. This is a child talking about colonizers.
Oh, yeah. Of course,
This is how well they have embedded this indoctrination of a progressive ideology. And that ideology says you will not have the ability to have freedom to travel or to do anything that the government doesn't approve of. That's the problem. Because we could have all the gas in the universe, and if you've already trained people from childhood because of Twitter and social media and teachers that they don't have a choice on where they can go unless the government approves, it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, I understand what you're saying. That, and in a lot of ways, conservative people that were in charge of, that's where local government really becomes important. These local school boards and school districts have been infiltrated many, many, many years ago. And the average person, whether they be just not a conservative, but just an average independent, and the conservative people allowed it to happen. Now we have to pay the price for that. Actions or inaction, in this case, has consequences.
Yeah.
It's going to have to get so bad at the social and cultural and economic levels before real change will occur.
But you know what that means?
Sadly, you and I are older. It's not going to affect us that much. It's the people just getting out of college, the people in their 30s and early 40s, they're going to pay the price.
But see, John, I think it is going to affect us because I agree with you. It has to get so bad before it makes a change. But the problem is, in getting so bad, that leads us and is pushing us down a path towards civil war. That's the division that they are trying to create. That's what they are pumping into these kids' minds. That if you don't agree, if you cry for the queen because she died, a human being died, and to show empathy because she died, and people are mourning across the globe about that. If you sympathize with that and empathize with that, well, then you're evil, and children are saying this is a problem.
Yeah.
That's a civil war coming down the road.
Well, I mean, I'm not a big Thomas Jefferson fan, even though he's a brilliant man. A little revolutionary now and then is a good thing. Maybe that's what we need. Maybe we've had it too good for too long.
Well, and again, this channel, my channel, your channel, and for folks who don't know, John has the Cordisco's Corner. It's a great channel. We definitely invite you to see what he does there. But neither of our channels obviously advocate for violence. We don't. But we are talking about a reality that's coming down the road, and we have to be realistic about that. And I just have to mention that for the censors.
I think the war is going to be won, and Tim Pool's talked about this extensively, and I agree. The war is going to be won in a cultural revolution. And I don't mean like China's cultural revolution. I'm talking about media. I'm talking about movies, music, television. And now slowly, between Tim Pool's doing some songs that are crashing through, and the progressives are losing their minds. Daily Wire is doing movies. That movie just came out about Hunter Biden.
Yeah, my son Hunter.
They're putting together we'll say a mirror culture, and in the end, as that culture grows bigger and bigger, one culture is going to win, and I believe it'll be the culture that's just coming up now, because you can tell by the reaction of the progressives as you're starting to chip away at their control of culture. They're freaking out, and that's always a good sign.
Yes, but here's the thing. I think that their reaction is terror. When someone's scared, you have the flight or fight reaction. It's natural in human beings. Your adrenaline gets up, and most of the time, you're either going to run from a fight or you're going to be in the fight. And the way they are pushing this, listening to the words of, we saw the Emperor Palpatine moment, the 1939 Reichstag moment of of Joe Biden, and we talked about this in the last week's program more in depth. But when we see that they are guiding these children, and we are seeing people like Hassan Piker, where I am getting comments on this channel, which is meant for adults, from a child that feels the need that they have to say, well, you're talking about colonizers, and that they're showing the indoctrination.
I got to tell you, I just put up an episode on my YouTube channel saying that Herschel Walker is starting to come up in the polls.
I saw that, yes.
Now, that wasn't, anything really controversial or anything just so outrageous. Now, you can't see, as well, you have a channel, people can't see how many thumbs down you get.
Right.
Now, this thing has 45% thumbs down. I probably have gone through and removed 80% of the comments. All of a sudden, it took off. I got several thousand views on it now.
Sweet,
so it went out to what I call the libtards / progressives.
Right.
And you should hear the vitriol in the comments. They said everything but the N-word.
Yeah, because
everything.
I know, because they're afraid.
And they're afraid. They're scared to death.
But see, when people...
And that makes we should push it even harder.
Yes, but we have to also understand that as a consequence of that is also violence. That the Democrats, the progressives, are pushing people into a corner where they feel like, oh, their only answer is to react. I mean, we've already seen that in the colleges. They teach kids microaggressions. That if you say something someone else finds offensive,
words are violence.
Exactly.
Words are violence. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so they are training this, which is setting us up.
That's a censorship tactic.
It is a censorship, but that censorship reacts in or can lead to violence when you have a weak leadership.
It's not working.
But it is.
They finally, it's like anything else. Even a field mouse will fight back if you corner it.
Yes, and it is, but it is working in the sense that we have progressive leaders of tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT. We have the Democratic Socialists of America, and especially the Ithaca chapter.
They have a special spot in my heart.
Yeah, and Antifa. They're all violent groups. These are violence groups that advocate violence, each and every one of them. And so we have this underculture, which is infiltrating into our schools, that is pushing this.
When I say this, the next thing I'm going to say, I'm not advocating for violence. I want to make it clear. I think of the line from the movie Amistad from John Quincy Adams when he was before the Supreme Court. And they were afraid that the court ruling would cause a civil war. This is 1840, I think. And he turned to the court and said, if it brings upon civil war, then let it come. And let it be the last battle of the American Revolution. Maybe the revolution we're talking about is not a gun, fighting in lines of soldiers and armies. The war that we're fighting is in the culture and society, and I think we're going to win that in the end.
I would hope that is the case, and I would prefer that to be the case because I don't think people understand. There was did you see the article that came out? I believe it was in the New York Times. One of the far left journalists mentioned that if there's a civil war, she's not going to survive. That she doesn't have any of the skills.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I hope, for the sake of the left, that they don't continue down this road that Biden is providing to them.
I mean,
because
I've got 2 grown kids and 1 granddaughter, and as a parent, you can only show by example and give life lessons to your kids so much. It gets to a point where you can't save them from themselves. Saving people from themselves is a near impossible task. Maybe some pain has to become that side in order for them to get red-pilled or wake up. Maybe that is the only way you'll have mass change, and they'll get off of this death spiral of government control and censorship. Maybe that's the only way. You have to feel the pain.
Well,
feel the burn, but in a different way.
We're going to feel it because, like I said, we see it in California. The government tells us, we're going to protect you. Get electric vehicles. We're going to take care of you. Pete Buttigieg said so. And now you can't. The vehicles don't move. They're limiting where you can go. They're restricting your freedom. And we're seeing in the schools, and I don't know if I've spoken to you about this before. Have you heard about equitable grading?
Yeah, I've heard about that. I saw some videos with young YAF videos where they were talking about equitable grading. And so they asked
Actually, I did one. I actually did.
Basically, you take the average of everybody in the class and you put it together.
No, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. I actually did it.
That's probably based on race and gender too, but
no, it is absolutely real quick. And I did an entire video on it, on equitable grading and what's being done in Illinois at this moment and how it's being swept across the rest of the nation. It basically says that if you're black or a person of color, you're going to be graded on a different scale. Your things like handing in homework, which teaches responsibility and living with deadlines, problem solving, that no longer applies to people of color. That students can only be, again, going into the segregation of having people who are like you only being there and mixing classes so that if you don't understand math, as an example, you're bad at calculus. You're going to be in the same calculus class as the advanced students who normally would be in advanced class.
But not only are you as good as calculus, you're not as good in calculus because you're black.
Well, that's their assumption is, well, because of your skin color, you're not good somehow at doing math, which makes no sense whatsoever. But they're going to put all the kids together, so either and make everyone perform basically the same, and drag everyone into this mash. This is the plan. This is equitable grading. It on every level is racist.
Yeah, what you're just describing, and things like different separate sororities and fraternities on college campuses based on race. There's a library. There was a library, a college library. I think it was in the Portland area. They had a section for people of color, non-people of color, and then something else. And so, you know who loves all this stuff? The Klan and the white supremacists eat this stuff up. You are now driving down their road.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, no, that's
a
the
problem
way the
too.
Klan thinks. They think just like that.
They do. And again, that's why we're going back into the 1950s. I mean, we had Ferguson, the decision in the Supreme Court on separate but equal. We had that decision, and today we are listening to progressives say, no, we want to go backwards. We want to go back to separate but equal, which is racist.
Connection. I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers, and I think the core support of the Democrats right now nationwide are the baby boomers that are left that were part of the old Democrat Party like I used to be. And the problem is, though, I mean, I saw a meme once where a guy said, I went to my mother's house and used parental controls on her TV changer and took off CNN. And she keeps calling me and said she can't get the news. He goes, this is how I'm saving my mother. Those old baby boomers still think that the Democrat Party of old still exists. And until they see things like this and finally wake up, they're still going to have that core 30-40% that still believe the Democrat Party is for justice and is for freedoms, and they still believe it.
But you're leaving out a part, John. The children, they jumped over a generation, and they are going to, again, I refer to John's YouTube short video about Hassan Piker dancing on the Queen's death, and he's targeting children.
I understand it's the next generation they're grooming. I get that part.
Yeah, and it's being effective.
But the thing is, if you see statistics and numbers, these progressives, they don't have children; they have your children. That's the line. Now, the fact of the matter is, though, if you look at, I think maybe it's not Gen Z. What's the next generation? This is the first time in over 50 years. The polls that I've seen on the younger people just picked like one or two spots right. They didn't go too far, but they stopped going left. And I think that's the future.
Depends on the poll.
Conservative people are having children. Progressives aren't. I mean, they've got lesbians getting their tubes tied. I'm like, what are you talking about? These people are nuts. and they'll eventually self-destruct, or maybe just through attrition, not have the numbers that they have now. I mean, think about that for a minute. And think about that insurance company for your employer that had to pay for that. Like, what are you doing? I think that kind of mentality, even though they do have our children in the school districts, I think in the end, you can see the numbers are slowly ticking the other way.
It depends. Now, let me show you something, and it's on screen for everyone right now. This is a report from the Washington Examiner. More Democratic voters favor socialism than capitalism, major shift. This is from August 12th of 2021, the most recent poll I can find.
Before you go in the article, here's the problem. The definition of socialism for them is different than what it is in reality.
Fair enough. They have a different view of what socialism is, and 40%.
Yeah, they think socialism is everybody's equal, everybody lives in a nice place, everybody makes a decent wage, everybody makes $50,000 a year, nobody owes any money, we all drive around electric cars, the air is crisp and clean, and everybody's happy on the commune. Well,
yeah.
But that's not the reality of it. And I think as socialist policies get put in, this reality is going to be a check for their behind.
Well, it'll be out, but it'll be too late. I mean, that was what.
I don't know.
Well, let me explain. Let me explain. Because we have seen in the example, and I will go to the most recent example in the world, which is Venezuela, where they promised everyone, you're going to have free stuff. You're going to have the quality equivalent to the United States. All you have to do is give up your guns, let the government decide things for you. It's going to be okay. And what has been the result? Mumps and measles has increased by 10,000% according to the CDC in 2019.
There's not a lot of cats and dogs walking around Venezuela either.
Nor in zoos. The zoo animals are being eaten as well as people eat out of garbage cans. And the Venezuelan government has killed over 5,200 of their own citizens, at least, according to the New York Times, to promote this socialism. That's the reality.
Here's the scary part about Venezuela. Their constitution is modeled after ours.
Sort of.
No, it's damn near the same.
Well, that's kind of
like the separation of powers in the Supreme Court and the checks and balances is very sophisticated. You don't see that in the world much.
Yeah,
what
but
I'm trying to say is that that's on paper, and we could lose that if we're not careful. That's why I'm saying I think America's in a unique position. Not that we're immune from this craziness. I think we're in a better position in almost every country in the world on this eternal, internal, progressive socialism cancer. I think because of our system is so strong, it helps in the fight against that, whereas the rest of the world doesn't have that. And that's why I think in the end we're going to win. Now, is it going to come as quick as I would like? I'll be 66 in November. Before this stuff gets straightened out, I'll probably be long gone, God willing. And we'll have to see. But I'm very optimistic for the future. I'm just very pessimistic for the next 5 years. No,
I understand. And I agree with you. And we agree on the end result. It's the interim problems that we're trying to address. And part of why I'm bringing it up is for people to be prepared and hopefully to prevent any of the violence that could happen by taking active action in our elections, in gaining control of our leaders and reminding them they're here to serve, not to dictate. They're not neo-nobles. We are the ones in charge. What's going to happen is when you mentioned the liberals in the cities, we wouldn't survive a civil war, or they're being brainwashed as children, and the next generation is going to be just as bad. The fact of the matter is nobody really thinks about these things until it hits them directly, personally, or somebody very close to them. Usually,
ever.
Yes.
That's just the way human beings are. Well, I'm fine, that's what I don't listen to those idiots on any of the media channels. I don't follow politics because it hasn't hit me yet. When it starts hitting the younger people, the ones you described that came up about the colonization and we're on stolen land BS, when it starts hitting them is when they'll start to wake up.
Yeah, but when that happens, we're going to have every country in the world trying to take a piece. I mean, that's a problem.
That's the one thing that the Biden economist has said was true. And I hate to say that it's true, but it is. The only way, if this inflation really starts kicking in, now we have the lowest inflation of anybody in the West, but it's still bad.
So far.
Now, so far. if this really starts getting out of hand, I mean, I got married in 79, so the early 80s was a high inflation time. I remember mortgages were 17%. Now, what's going to have to happen is, and this is where some of the economists for Biden are right, they're going to have to cause a recession in order to slow down the inflation. That's the only way now.
Yeah.
Because of the monster that they've let loose.
But the problem is they are deepening the recession as we speak. And by the way, folks, I'm going to come back to your comments, and John, we're going to wrap up in just a minute because I want to make sure other people can speak as well.
Oh, yeah.
Although I'm enjoying it.
We could go. Mike and I could go on for 5 hours if you let us.
Easily. And I think it's wonderful. And one of these days, we do have to do that. We really got to get together and do that. But one of the things I'm seeing about this is their approach to the recession that we are in, even though they don't want to acknowledge it until after the 2022 elections, because this is negative for their hopes. So literally the week after the election, they're going to say we're in a recession. The fact is that they are doing everything to increase and deepen the recession and extend the recession, like the Inflation Reduction Act. They still haven't understood the consequences. Even as economists, 200 economists have said the Inflation Reduction Act is going to create inflation. It doesn't help at all, and yet they're still spending more money. They can't get away from this.
So you can't tell if they're just totally clueless or evil. It's hard to tell.
It's a little of both, I think.
No, I'm not so sure. I mean, it's like one or the other, kind of, in a way. I think the vast majority are clueless, and that's why I see the optimism, because they're not even the people that control the most powerful military and the biggest economy in the world. If they're truly evil, we're in more trouble than I thought. If they're truly clueless, that's easier to fix by getting them out.
Well, yes, but I think there's elements of some people who are just evil out there. I do believe Ilhan Omar. I do believe Cori Bush. I think Patrice Cullors of BLM. There are evil people who are behind some of these things, looking out for their own self-interest and taking down everyone along the way because they just don't care.
Yeah, if I can't have it, nobody can.
Yeah, it's like I want all your stuff, and if I can't have your stuff and you be subservient to me, then we'll just burn it all down, which is BLM.
One of the pillars of Marxist doctrine.
Yeah, it is.
And I think we're not immune from that, but we have more resistance against that kind of Marxist doctrine than most countries, especially Western Europe. That's why I'm encouraged in the end. And I'll leave you with this. Everybody that's listening is going to be listening to this video because Mike archives them on his channel. Is I know this sounds old-fashioned and it sounds maybe worthless. When you go to vote this November, bring at least 5 people if you can with you. Make it so, well, I'm going to treat you to dinner, but we're going to go to vote first, and then we'll go out. We'll eat dinner. I like Little Venice here locally, but you can eat wherever you want. And make it like that. And if every person did that, all you need is 3-4% in a lot of these races. 3 or 4%.
Sometimes way less than that.
Are the Republicans the shining example of what? No, but the thing is, though, we're backed into a corner. The Democrats are a disaster. Republicans take over. We put pressure on them to do the right thing. That is the only way forward.
Yeah, we got to start somewhere, and this is where we need to start and start clawing it back.
Start right at the ground level. In fact, Steve Bannon's talked about that in election precincts and a lot of the tens of thousands. They're taking a page out of the progressives' playbook and they're using it very effectively.
Yeah, there they are.
And I, like I said, the revolution won't be televised. I use that line because that's an old 1960s slogan.
It is.
You probably know what it is, but a lot of the people that don't know what that is.
Well, that's true.
The guy with a deep voice. The revolution will not be televised.
Yeah.
And that was more of a social 1960s Black Panther type thing. But it's true. It won't be televised. The revolution comes from the street you live on, the block you live on. That's where the revolution comes. just like the American Revolution. It comes street by street, house by house, block by block, city by city. That's the way it works.
Yeah, I agree. John, I always appreciate whenever you call in. I thank you for calling in. I'm serious.
Yeah,
we have to do
fun.
we have to collaborate one day and just do a long video.
Well, I'm going to be on. I think it's a channel called Matt in Exile. I think that's the name of his channel. There's a guy called Constitutional Vet that's a big term limit proponent, and I'm not. And we're going to have a debate on the 16th on his channel at 6 o'clock Eastern time. So that'll be interesting. Things like that I like to get into. I don't mean to argue, but a real debate where you get like 5 minutes and 2 minutes, that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting how that turns out.
I look forward to it.
Maybe we can do that.
Sure, absolutely. Let's give me a call afterwards, and we'll work it out.
We agree on 90% of the things. We're going to have to figure out the things we don't agree on.
Yeah, that'll take some work. But no, give me a call afterwards, and we'll work it out.
Yeah, we'll figure out something. It'll be fun. Maybe we'll do a live thing. I mean, I don't have what's that Streamlab or whatever it is. I'm going to get it eventually.
I don't use it.
I have a camera here, so if we wanted to do a debate, the two of us live on camera, we could do that, or we could just do the debate, just you and I talking like that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll work it out. Like I said, give me a call afterwards, and we'll talk.
All right, everybody, take care, and don't forget, bring 5 people to vote in November.
All right. Thank you very much, John.
Take care.
So, folks, just like John, you too can call into the program at any time at No Soundbites Allowed. The phone number is, as you see scrolling above, at 607-242-1582. This is available for anyone in the world. Anywhere in the world, you can call in, just like you can leave your comments on YouTube, Facebook. You can reach us and tell us what you think about these issues that are affecting us all. By the way, I haven't put it up there, but please, if you are enjoying, if you find this entertaining, informative, whatever the case is, please like, share, and most of all, subscribe. Help us to reach, we are very close to 1,000 subscribers. It will help us in the algorithms to be able to get to reach more people around the world and have their voices included every Sunday, just like today, to hear what everyone thinks, because that helps us to get to solutions rather than just blind obedience to our governments. And I think that's very important. So please, if you can, just hit that subscribe button. It makes a big difference, and we would really appreciate it. We're like 90 people away, 80 people away from 1,000. That's one of our goals. And yes, Jen. John is a personal friend. I've known him for many, many years. And I do enjoy his show. And we want to work on a collaboration because it'd be fun. But I want to go on. Something that user has been banned just mentioned, that working with people who got out of college is the most frustrating thing. They can't use a screwdriver and feel entitled to be in a lead role on a job site. Then they mess up stuff constantly. It is one of the telling things about the indoctrination we are seeing in our schools. The indoctrination that is being put on children through Twitch and social media by people like Hassan Piker is that we are seeing these kids are being brainwashed to think they are entitled, that they are on the right side of history, that they don't have to listen to the wisdom of those who came before them or to read the history as it exists, that the revisions that they are being fed are the truth. And the problem is, when you see these kids, and I see this often, I've seen individuals, they don't know how to fix a pipe, they don't know how to clean, they don't know how to raise children, they don't know anything. But they think they have the answers, and they will sit back and wait until someone else steps up to take care of their problem for them because they think they are entitled. And think, this is the generation that's going to take over, that don't actually know how to do things. Now, I understand there are younger people who watch this program. There is a counterculture. There are conservatives in our colleges. You are not alone, but they have a troubling task in front of them. Because even if it's only 25% of the youth that are being indoctrinated in this manner and are believing things like critical race theory that says that white people are evil, black people are victims, and only the government can solve it for you, Imagine that these are the people that are being our government, that are in our jobs, and they are going to fail, epically fail. And they expect someone else to come and pick up the pieces and fix it for them. This is going to be a problem for America. We need to nip this in the bud and address it right now. I agree with you, user. These kids don't know how to fix anything. They don't know how to fix their own lives, let alone the infrastructure in the nation. And we need to get them educated quick. And sadly, these are the same people who are pushing us closer and closer to a civil war because they think that's the right thing to do, because their leaders like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like Nancy Pelosi, like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are telling them that they have to, because again, the government is micromanaging their lives, and the leadership in government right now is saying the only answer is to reject, to fight against the microaggressions, to fight against the critical race theory of the people opposed to critical race theory, to fight against anyone who has an unapproved message. That's dangerous for this nation and for the global stability of the world. Because if the United States is not stable, there is no place on the face of the earth that will be safe. The global stability fails. We are, whether we like it or not, we are the police of the world. We are the military might of the world. And we keep the rest of the rogue powers in the world in check. Even with a weak leader like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, they are still terrified of the potential power that we have if the United States starts moving. What was it that was said? I think by Roosevelt. When we entered into World War II, no, it was the Japanese who said, when we've woken a sleeping giant, the United States in weak leadership may be slow to move, but when the United States move, we make huge strides and we make a massive impact every step we take. That keeps rogue countries and rogue agents quiet, especially when we have a strong leader, because they know the U.S., when it acts, will act in a massive kind of way. And if we have weak leadership, if we have internal strife, that problem is no longer in their face and they go wild, which is why we're seeing North Korea say that they have a dead man switch on nuclear weapons, why they are facilitating China in providing arms to Russia, why we see North Korea and China firing off, 15 hypersonic missiles that we cannot stop, and threatening South Korea and China as well as Taiwan in the face of defiance of Joe Biden and his so-called international policy, making a mockery of people like Nancy Pelosi when she goes to Taiwan. This is all connected, folks. This isn't conspiracy theory. These are the events that are happening around us, and these are the logical conclusions. I know the left wants to say, well, it's just a conspiracy theory. No, it's a logical conclusion based on the facts, and I am showing you the facts as we go. They don't even have a logical conclusion. If you doubt this, just ask anyone in government. Go to Josh Riley, who's running for the New York 19th District. I know him personally. He's a Democrat. I have had meals with the man who will not answer any of the questions I have put forward to him. I have asked him, as he is running for Congress, what is your plan for the food shortage that the White House has predicted, that the world has predicted will be 40% less food in the world? He has yet to answer that question. I asked it 4 months ago. He will not answer that. I have asked him about, hey, what are you doing to get Americans, which may be New Yorkers, maybe people from the southern tier of New York, we don't know, the thousands of Americans that are in Afghanistan, what are you doing to bring them home? He will not answer that question. His predecessor, former Representative Antonio Delgado, before he abandoned the New York 19th to become running for the lieutenant governor with appointed Governor Kathy Hochul, he refused to answer what is the plan for the food shortage. He refused to answer what are we doing about the Americans in Afghanistan that have been abandoned by the Biden administration. Ask them, folks. You don't have to believe me. Ask them what are their solutions to the consequences of their actions. They don't have one because they're not thinking about consequences. They're thinking about winning the next election. That's it. They don't have a plan that goes beyond the next election. And when this is done, they're going to go to the next election. They're looking at 2022, then they're going to look at 2024, and their answers go no further than what gets us votes. That's why they're talking. That's why today Kamala Harris is once again talking about abortion. Why is she talking about abortion? We already seen the Supreme Court come out. We've already seen the protests from the left. We've already got that resolved. Virtually every state still allows abortion at some level. Nothing has changed. Women have lost zero rights. And yet Kamala Harris is bringing up abortion today because she has nothing else she can talk about. Remember, she's the one who's in charge of the southern border. Why isn't she talking about the southern border? Why isn't she talking about the illegal immigration that she's supposed to be in charge of? Why isn't she talking about that? Instead, as reported by Business Insider, Kamala Harris says she's not confident about the integrity of the Supreme Court. She's saying that the Supreme Court is an activist court because of Roe versus Wade. That's her comments there. This is already resolved. Why is she talking about it today? Because she can't talk about illegal immigration. She doesn't want to talk about the 5 million illegal aliens that have entered America. She doesn't want to talk about the terrorists we have caught trying to enter America to assassinate our leadership in the United States. She doesn't want to talk about the crimes that some of these illegal aliens are doing. She doesn't want to talk about the recession that America is in. She doesn't want to talk about the failure of our government under her leadership, along with Joe Biden, to take care of the problems of the American people. She wants to change the argument because she's trying to help win the 2022 election for people like Josh Riley, who do not have answers because they don't care about the answer. They care about power. If anyone disagrees with me on this, if you think I've misunderstood that I have not said this, that this doesn't make sense, if the evidence comes to a different conclusion, call in 607-242-1582. Type in your comment. I'd love to hear it, but this is the conclusions that I am seeing, and it makes sense. Now, there are some comments, and I want to get to them. Jan says, experience is the key. Learning from elders is wisdom. Well, that's always been true, but the new answer for the left in our schools, according to equitable grading, social reform, is that no, everyone who's grew up before you, well, they're just embedded with racism. They're implicitly racist and sexist. And so you can't listen to them. You have to listen to the new leadership. You have to listen to your college professors and your teachers who have the new answer, which is socialism. And that's better than the wisdom of your elders who already grew up and went through these problems and were coming up with better solutions. You know, they don't want to listen to, I'm 54 years old. They're trying to tell the youth today, don't listen to Mike, 54 years old, grew up in the 1970s and experienced real racism, harsh racism, and went through the 80s and 90s when that racism was defeated and people were living together without issues until we came to the 2000s. And now we're talking about separate but equal as being the correct answer for the first time forever. See, that's a problem. They are trying to teach these kids not to listen to the wisdom that exists, to look at the examples that are before them, and instead to accept this experiment that is called socialism and say, well, no, that's better than everyone else. No one knows better. We've got the answer this time. That's a problem. And that's why we are getting closer to civil war, because these kids are being told, don't listen, don't believe, just obey. Go out and do what we say. That's why we are seeing groups like BLM, Antifa, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, the Democratic Socialists of America, especially the Ithaca chapter, that they all believe in violence, and they are using that violence. They have burned down our cities. They have created autonomous zones, which is terrorism, which is insurrection. It is a violation of every law at every level of government in our nation, and they think that's great. Really, we got to call this stuff out. Mike Bowie mentions Jill Scott Heron, which I know the name. I don't understand or remember the reference you're making there, Mike. Let's see. Going through, Jan mentions that Biden rips Putin in. Then the other day I saw an article where it says America is buying oil from Russia. I haven't seen that as well, Jan. I am looking for that information. James, hello, James. James Lucid is with us. James says that a happy project for a new America got their new Pearl Harbor Day. It's terrifying. It's truly terrifying to me. Jan says, Senator spends 4 of their 6 years working towards re-election. So tell me when they are actually working on real issues. Well, we see it less and less that people are working on the actual issues. That's one of the problems with why we should have term limits. It's one of the reasons why we should have it. Because they're too busy trying to get reelected than actually taking care of the issues that affect us all. I disagree with that. Let me catch up. John mentions that he believes that we should go back to U.S. senators that are appointed by the states, which, for those who don't know, it wasn't always that you elected your senator. That wasn't always the way in America. At one point, they were appointed by governors, and that's how they would take positions. So there's good and bad to that. And as User has mentioned, User Has Been Banned mentions that would mean that Kathy Hochul would be picking the senators. Isn't that terrifying? Could it be worse than what we have now? Yes, it could. But it is a discussion. It is something that we can talk about. I want to get back to one of the thoughts here. Because again, we're talking about civil war. Is that on the edge? Are we getting closer to a civil war? And hang on, I'll just type this out for you guys. I can't type today. And so I think we are getting closer to a civil war. We're seeing it in a lot of little elements. So I've mentioned already how we see the indoctrination of children through people like Hassan Piker, how we are seeing that in our schools, like with the application of critical race theory, which we've talked about on this program before, with the inclusion of the Confucius Institute, which is from China, which are havens of spy networks in our colleges. We've talked about that on this channel before. We are seeing this in the application of critical race theory. But it's not just that, because we are seeing different applications of things like the red flag laws. Remember, the government is instituting these laws that whittle away your rights and freedoms. We've been talking about red flag laws since 2018. We have looked at hundreds, literally hundreds of resources. We have spoken to states like Connecticut and Indiana that have had red flag laws the longest. In fact, they were the ones who created the red flag laws. We have looked at the results, like in New York State, where over 1,409 people have had red flag laws used against them. And we have seen the evidence that they do not work. They have never been meant to work. Their purpose is not to make you safe. It is to take away your Second Amendment right. And the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act works in tandem with red flag laws that you are not guilty. You are never charged with a crime. You have no defense. You are punished. Your property is taken away from you. Your children are taken away from you. Yes, that is a consequence of red flag laws. It has been verified by many, many politicians who actually voted on these laws. It is a consequence of that. And they demonize you in your public. That's what a red flag law does. The Safer Communities Act puts a dollar sign, a target, a purchase price on you for having the Second Amendment, where we are seeing in Illinois and in New York City, they are going around knocking on doors spontaneously because you have the Second Amendment, because you have a weapon that has been registered with the state, they are looking to go knocking on your door to find a justification to take away your rights without a crime ever being committed, to take away your freedom, to take away your property, to take away your children, and get paid by the government with your tax dollars to pay them, to put you on a list, to deny you your Second Amendment rights. And they're doing this all because they are saying it's in your best interest. It's to make you safe. You know what they forget to mention? I bet you didn't notice this article that came from PBS NewsHour, September 2nd. I bet no one was talking about this around the nation. And what is it? Red flag laws are used very little and do not affect mass shootings or gun or illegal firearm use. Gangs don't care. Crazed individuals don't care. Criminals who want to cause harm do not care. And red flag laws do not work. In fact, looking at Chicago, New Mexico, and Massachusetts alone, that's 2,700 shootings and homicides with firearms, and all put together, 27 red flag laws were used, or 20 red flag actions were used in those locations. 2,700. Red flag laws are less than 1/10 of the time, are used 1/10 of the time. They are not effective. They are not saving anyone. And I will tell you why. We have done the research on this many times. And as we have said, in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, when we have spoken to New York State and elected representatives, both those who are elected and running for office, red flag laws do not stop suicide. Red flag laws do not stop mass shootings. Red flag laws do not look at the people who make mass shootings. The average mass shooter is someone in their mid-20s. Red flag laws only target people who are in their 40s and usually married. That's not the same person who's doing a mass shooting. They aren't built to make you safe. That's not their job. Red flag laws are meant to take away your rights and to take away your property and to take away your due process. And they do that in every single state that they exist in. That is a fact. And this is driving a wedge between Americans. Americans, whether you're a Democrat, a progressive, a libertarian, if you own a firearm, you are a target. It doesn't matter what your political ideology is. You own a firearm. They want to disarm you. Therefore, you are a target, and they get paid. The states have an incentive to take away your rights because they will get paid. And New York, Illinois, California, Maryland, these are states that are bankrupt and are desperate for money. They need your money. They need your tax dollars because they don't have enough money to live up to their progressive policies. Because socialism doesn't pay its own bills. Socialism is a leech. It is a parasite. It needs other people's money to pay for the things that it wants to give away, so long, and that trade-off provides it with power. They take from you and redistribute to others to maintain their own power. How do you think they're doing the college loans? They're taking money from every American, whether you went to college or not, whether you paid off your loan or not. They're taking your money to give it to a small group of people, most of which can afford to pay off their loans, like AOC, like Cory Bush, who make 5 times as much as the average American. They're giving them money to pay off their loans, and you're paying for it, and inflation is going up because of it. And you know what you get out of that? More socialism, more government control is the net result. The economy's not better off. Your life isn't better off. The government has more control, which is worse for individuals. No one wins except the elites. Now, if you disagree with me, again, 607-242-1582. or if you want to make a comment on it, please call in, because this is the reality. And if you're and anyone who wants to debate the red flag laws, I'm happy to do so. I have offered for forever. I have gone to colleges. I've discussed it. I've gone to colleges and discussed the red flag laws. I am happy and open to every member of Congress, any candidate for any elected official or office to discuss the red flag laws and their impact and their failure. And I have yet to hear a single Democrat ever say, Mike, I'm willing to listen to you. I want to review your documents. Let me check your sources. Not once. Because they know I know what I'm talking about, and they know I'm right. Every single one of them. They know it's correct. They just don't want you to know it. And that's what's driving a wedge amongst Americans. That's why we're getting closer to the Civil War. And I first talked about this. This isn't a new thing. 2018, it was July 6th of 2018, I was talking about, is a second Civil War in our future? And how are we getting there? The roots of this go back into 2008, 2011. The roots of the problems have been long-term and slow-moving. And we are reaching a plateau that may be putting us at a pinnacle. I think I have this queued up right. I want you to hear this. Being divided, not just on left and right, but we're talking to the extremes where communism is suddenly an option for people, where we're seeing that socialism is considered an option for people. And Bernie Sanders comes out and he pushes in that idea that socialism is cool. It's a great idea. Che Guevara, see kids running around with their t-shirts with Che on, not understanding he's a mass murderer like Mao, like Stalin. And they believe this because they're looking for leadership, solid, consistent leadership, and we're not getting it. And we're seeing that the lines between left, right, and even within the left and the right, even further. Yes, you have the Tea Party on one side, which is nonviolent. There was never a recorded arrest of violence at a Tea Party event, ever. But what you do see is on the left-hand side, though, lots of violence. Antifa, Occupy Wall Street, Citizen Action, groups like that. Now, this was from 2018, 2 years before we had the Summer of Love. Remember that? We had the Summer of Love. And like the Summer of Recovery, it was a complete failure. There was no love. There was just violence. Dozens of people were killed. Hundreds of people were injured. Cities were burned down. Businesses removed. Homes destroyed. We have cities that will take decades to recover from the damage in 2020. And that has all been part of this idea to separate us because they're taking away our leadership. There is no leadership. It was obvious in 2018. It was obvious in 2011, 2008. We can go back in time. We can see the Democrats in pushing this ideology, this progressive mantra, have been destroying leadership, both going forward and also any review of the leadership of the past. What was it that Kylo Ren said? Kill the past, destroy it if you need to. That is the example of what is socialism today. They can't look backwards in time because they would see that all of their policies, all the things that they are promoting, don't work. So they have to look to the future. They have to ignore the reality that we have there. But when we do look at the past, we see the seeds of the problems that we have today. Whether it's the Summer of Recovery that led to greater unemployment, that led to a greater recession, whether it's the Summer of Love that led to autonomous zones, people dying, cities being burned down, or we're looking at it today where we have this Summer of Illusions with Joe Biden promising you, telling you that the economy is better. We're in a great economy. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't look at your pocketbook or your bank account when you go to the store and you're paying 30, 40% more for the food that you need to get. to see the empty shelves. 15% of shelves are empty, seeing that your gasoline is more expensive today by about 40% than what it was just 18 months ago. And he tells you, no, the economy's fantastic. You just don't understand. Don't look at the past. Kill it if you have to. The future is the answer, and the future is authoritarian. That's terrifying. We've been talking about this since 2018. 4 years later, the problem is even worse. It is not better. Back in 2018, 31% of Americans were saying, we think there's a civil war coming down the road within the next 5 to 10 years. That was in 2018. People were saying, we could be getting close to a civil war in 5 to 10 years. 31% of Americans. And today, as of July 19th of 2022, according to science, half of Americans anticipate a civil war soon. Half. That's what the status is showing us. Gee, and what are we seeing? Red flag laws across America, paying to take away your Second Amendment rights with the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. We have Joe Biden standing in front of the American people on national TV, draped in red with the full power of the government behind him in the form of 2 Marines, telling you that if you don't agree, you are evil, you are an extremist, you are the problem. How does that not push us closer to a civil war? And if anyone thinks I'm misunderstanding it, 607-242-1582. John Cordisco called in. You can call in too. If you disagree with me, fantastic. Just be respectful and tell me why you think I'm wrong. I'm happy to hear your argument. I'm happy to hear why you think that. If your name is Josh Riley and you're running for the New York 19th District of Congress and you refused, you promised to do an interview, hey, I'd love to hear from you, Josh. Call in. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why the things that you are promoting right now, if you make it to Congress, that you're promoting, taking away people's rights. Tell me how that's in the best interest of America, how it does not divide Americans, how it does not bring us closer to a civil war. Please, I'm happy to hear your conversation. Antonio Delgado, I'm happy. I've been asking you for a year to answer these questions. Please give me a call. Kathy Hochul, I'll be happy to have that conversation with you. Give me a call. On the local level, you know what? I'll talk to everyone and anyone. District Attorney Jason Garnar, who I know personally. Jason, you have my phone number just like Josh Riley does. Give me a call. You know where my house is. So does Josh Riley. You've been here before. Come on down. Let's have a conversation. Donna Lapardo, you know who I am. She's an assemblywoman. Please, come on over. You've been to my house several times. Talk to me. Tell me how I am wrong. Tell me how the things you are promoting right now are going to make New York or the United States any better. I've been asking them this question for years. They won't answer. What about your local politician? Have you asked them these questions? Because if they can't answer this, do not vote for them. Notice I didn't say just because they're Republican or just because they're libertarian or just because they're progressive. I'm not saying that. If they can't answer your questions, if they can't explain how these actions that are obviously dividing America, how it's in our best interest, if they can't answer that and yet they support these things, do not vote for them. I don't care who it is. If it's a rhino like Liz Cheney, if it's like a rhino like Mitt Romney, looking overseas at the United Kingdom, if it's a rhino like Liz Truss, don't vote for them. These people do not deserve to be in office. I love it, Jan. Yeah. But he's uniting the country. Who's he uniting? That's the big question. Who is he uniting? And what is he uniting them about? He's uniting the progressives in trying to destroy America, in trying to remove our Constitution. They're trying to institute a constitution like the one in Chile. Do you remember that? I don't know if a lot of people saw that. I think I have it. Yes, I do. They want to get in a constitution. They want to rewrite it. Remember, this is BLM. They want to get rid of the American Constitution. This is Antifa. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is the Progressive Movement, Democratic Socialists of America, Bernie Sanders, the Squad, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush. They want to get rid of the American Constitution. They want to destroy that. We even hear people like Kamala Harris who are saying, don't trust the Supreme Court. They want to destroy entire branches of our government, destroying our entire foundation of our nation. And instead, they want to put in their progressive ideas. You know what? They tried that in Chile. You know what happened? The people of Chile, looking at this, and this is reported by The Guardian on September 4th, they looked at the progressive ideas. You know, you can pick whatever gender you want. They want to have socialism in there, redistributing of all the wealth. They looked at it, and 62% of the people reading the document, looking at what the progressives want to do, and they said, hell no. They would rather have a dictatorship. They would rather have Pinochet rather than the progressive left ideology. But yet, that's what they're trying to push in America. That's why they praise Che Guevara, why they praise Mao, Chairman Mao, why they praise the socialist ideology, Marxism. That's why they're going after this, because they want to do this to you. They want these social ideas that will destroy your life. And it's something they don't want to talk about. The major news media didn't want to tell you that in Chile, they said, progressives, you got to be kidding me. You're out of your mind. You know, we may have been under a dictatorship, but that's better than being under a progressive Congress, a progressive ideology, a constitution. They don't want that. That should tell you something, that when the world is given the choice between socialism and American democracy, our representative government, when they're given a choice with freedom or the authoritarian rule of progressives, when they have that choice, people will never choose the progressives. And we see that in many levels. It's not just in Chile. Just look at the conversations. Look at, what is it? The rings of power is a microcosm of what we're talking about here. People wholesale are rejecting the rings of power, which is a display, a billion-dollar display of progressivism, of this idea that we have to destroy the past, kill what Tolkien has written and what hundreds of millions of people have loved for decades, for half a century. Got to kill that and put in this new thing that no one wants and no one asked for. And everyone rejects because it doesn't work. Same thing with She-Hulk. Same thing with Captain Marvel. We're seeing this in all of our media. No, we have to kill the past, destroy all of the things that these stories are part of our culture, part of our lives, part of the wisdom that we live with. A reinforcement of the ideals that have worked around the world of what freedom and fellowship and unity actually bring us. And the answer that we are hearing from progressives more and more desperately is, you can't do that. Stop thinking. Obey. You have to obey. They don't. They're desperate to make sure you don't think, even for a second, because if you do, you will see that it doesn't make sense. If you think for a second about, everyone has to have an electric car, even though you can't afford it. Well, that doesn't solve the problem that we don't have enough energy, because you can't charge those electric cars. You're not supposed to think about that. You're not supposed to tie those two things together and make the logical conclusion. Because unity, and the unity they want is obedience. They don't want you to be unified. They want you to be obedient. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they haven't been talking about unifying America. They have been talking about control over America, about destroying America at its most fundamental base. That's why they're saying the things they're saying. Now, I want to show you. Again, this is why we are hearing that Kamala Harris is talking about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's activist. We need more judges. We need to balance it out. The Supreme Court's not about balance. It's about the Constitution. It's about what the writing actually says and laws. But we know that Joe Biden has violated the Constitution on many levels. We've seen the Supreme Court come out and reject several things he's done. And they're about to reject his the student loan debt elimination. They're going to reject that because he doesn't have that power. But that's what they want, is they want the power to destroy America, to control your life. I want to make sure that this is clear. When they talk about the student loan debt, it's about control. You see, you only have the student loan debt, and you lose, they forgive your student loan debt, which is not true. They're redistributing your student loan debt. That only happens if Democrats are in control, if they have the power. And that means that you have to keep them in power. Otherwise, to save this nation, to prevent $600 billion more inflation, that you have to have Democrats in power, which means you have no control. You have no choice. It's eliminating choice. If you want the free stuff, you have to take them in power as well at the same time. Otherwise, you don't get the free stuff. And everyone wants free stuff, even though the consequence is you are worse off. Your quality of life will be reduced. The inflation will be increased. The interest rates will increase. You will be able to afford fewer things. That's why new homes are down 11%. People, 11%. Mortgages are down 11% because of the Biden-Harris agenda, because of the political progressive ideology. And so that's not unity. Again, if someone thinks that this is unifying, I'm happy to hear them. I've been asking every one of the Democratic candidates for Congress consistently for years, please come on, tell me why this is unifying. Please tell me how you are unifying America, either in a state or across the country, by telling half the people they are evil, telling the nation that they have to obey or they will be punished. Tell me how these policies do anything but hurt Americans. Why should we unify on something that is going to take away the ability of the youth to be able to buy housings, to buy their homes, that's going to make it impossible for people to live their lives, and to take away the ability to eat food? Tell me. If you think I'm wrong, I'm happy to hear. I hope I'm wrong. Please show me the silver lining that says, hey, at the end of the day, this works for everyone. Tell me what that is. Show me the logical conclusion. Don't tell me, well, it's socialism, so it always works. No, it doesn't. It's never worked, ever. And they've always said it's a great idea. We've fixed all the problems. We have the new version of socialism that's going to work. Socialism 2.0, 3.0, 5.0. It's going to work this time. It never does. It has never worked. There is not one example of socialism working where people are more free and have a better quality of life after socialism has been introduced. Doesn't exist anywhere in the world. Nowhere. And if people want to lie and say, well, there's, of course, the Nordic countries like Sweden in them, they're not socialist. Ask those countries themselves. They will tell you they're not socialists. They don't believe in socialism. So that's a lie, and it's a bad lie at that. Let me get back to some of the comments here. So I want to catch back up here. Mike Bowie mentions that Gil Scott Heron wrote, "The revolution will not be televised in 1970. And you have the record around there. Okay. Thank you, Michael. I didn't catch that right away. Thank you for that update. James Lucid mentions that kids that like Minecraft, the kids are obsessed with this stuff. I don't mind the game. I want to be clear, James Lucid. I'm not upset that kids are watching Twitch. I'm not upset that kids are playing video games. I play video games. I don't watch TV. I don't watch TV shows because look at the trash that we're being given hand over hand over and over again. You know, Wanda, what is it? Minds of Madness and those movies. I'm not watching that crap. I myself play video games and I watch anime. That's it. And of course, and read and watch the news, which is 80% of my day. So I'm not upset that kids are playing the games. I'm upset that when they are watching these Twitch live streams, they are being indoctrinated. We have people like Hassan and some of the others that are infiltrated. While the kids are watching this, they are subjecting them to indoctrination, trying to sell them on socialism and doing things like dancing on the graves of the Queen. That's happening at the same time. See, there's my problem. You want to have a game? You want to watch a game or talk about a game, watch a live stream of someone playing a game? Fantastic. Leave the politics out. Especially since you know that's targeting children. Leave the politics out. That's not for the kids. But they're doing it on purpose because they know that if they get the kids, this is again an idea from 1930s Germany. Go after the kids because then you get the future. They're trying to get these kids so that in 10 years, those kids are voting and they are already members of the party. They become the next brown shirts. That's what this is about. But let me go on with some of the comments. User has been banned mentions that he knows people have been putting off paying their loan because of talking about student loan forgiveness. I can't blame them. Yeah, I don't blame them either. And I understand. It's kind of like when we got those stimulus checks, because that was supposed to help us, which created part of the inflation that we have today. And it's a problem. It's not helping anyone. It was the worst thing you could do. It was a bad answer. And it created a problem that we're paying for today. Look at the inflation rate and how it is going even higher. So I can't blame people, but once that check was sent to you, the money was already spent. It's too late. So I don't blame people for cashing the check. I cashed my check. Why? The money was already spent. The damage had already been done. The college loans, I don't blame people for not paying their loans and waiting to get paid off because the desperate Democrats are trying to buy their votes. And it's just a matter of waiting them out because their desperation will get to that point. That's why Iran is waiting on the Iran nuclear deal. The Democrats are desperate. They need a win. And Democrats have been giving Iran concession after concession after concession, increasing global terror around the world as they do so. And Iran, all they have to do is say, no, make the deal better. And the Biden-Harris administration have been doing that, making more global terror and endangering more American lives around the world, as well as the lives of our allies. That's the problem. So I can't blame people for taking advantage of what is already happening. The problem is we're letting it happen in the first place. This should never have happened, both because he doesn't have the power to do that and because it is dividing Americans. How many Americans are upset because they never went to college or they didn't get a degree or they paid off their college loan? The overwhelming majority of Americans either paid off the college loans or never had the debt, and now they have to pay for someone else's debt? Someone like AOC. We're paying off the debt of AOC and Cori Bush. They make $175,000 a year. Cori Bush has a $70,000 a year private security because police, she doesn't believe in the police, but she believes in her private security. She believes in the private security working on her properties. She's a landlord. Yeah, she's a landlord. But she wants landlord relief except for her properties. She makes $100,000 a year off of being a landlord. She makes $175,000 for being a member of Congress. That's $275,000 a year, and yet she demanded of the people of Minneapolis to pay off in full her college debt. Why? Why in the hell would anyone want to do that? And why wouldn't they be upset? Because she's trying to get that. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is another example. Anna Presley is another example. Why are we paying off their debt? Of course, this is dividing America. And this is not uniting America at all. But I want to go further. And I am looking through some of the comments. User has been banned says that Twitch isn't a video game platform. It's OnlyFans Lite. Well, that's only if you're speaking about the fact that I believe on Twitch, they just had a woman who was playing a video game and having sex live. And they left the video up. She's not banned. They allowed that to be shown to the public. So yeah, it is an OnlyFans Lite because that happened. Seriously, that happened, folks. I remember that article. It's insane to me. But I want to get to how bad this is. So I'm talking about, and I want to show you. So we know that 4 years ago, 30% of America said we were getting closer to a civil war. Today, 50% of America say we're getting closer to a civil war. And the thing that really drives me about this, half of America is saying that we're going to a civil war, and we have the far left that are saying this is a good thing, and they want this. They're promoting this. This is something that they're trying to make happen. Here's an example. An Injustice magazine, aninjusticemagazine.com. Is civil war necessary to end racism in America? First of all, we already had a civil war about that. Then we had the civil rights movement. And now they're trying to go backwards because they believe the far left, these very same people, are trying to bring back separate but equal, which is segregationist, which is racist. And this is what they want to bring back because the only way that black people can learn is if they have black teachers. The only way you can enjoy a movie is if you have a black actor in the movie, even if it's about Robin Hood in Sherwood Forest in the 1500s, where there were no black people. But that's besides the point. Rewrite history, kill the past, write the new version because that's how they need it. And only people just like you are the people that you can appreciate, learn for, and enjoy. That's the only way. And anything else is racist. If someone says that you can enjoy The Lord of the Rings without having Asians or American Indians or Eskimos in it, well, they don't understand that's racist. You have to have Eskimos in The Lord of the Rings. Why? I don't know, but you have to have it. It has to exist. There has to be an Eskimo elf. Why? Because progressivism. Somehow that changes whether or not you can appreciate the story that has been around for 60 years. By the way, let's remember, things like The Lord of the Rings, the history of the world, we remember these things because they were epic, because they were important, not because of the diversity. People, I believe The Lord of the Rings has been translated into 60 different languages for the last half century. But today, you can't appreciate The Lord of the Rings unless it's diversified, unless it's made, I don't even know what the word is, where we have to have all the different genders and races and sexualities have to be in there because you can't appreciate it. How the hell did the story get popular in Papua New Guinea? How do people in, I don't know, Ghana appreciate The Lord of the Rings if there are no Ghanans in there? It's so stupid. It makes no sense when you think, but you're not supposed to think. You're just supposed to obey. And that's why they say things like, we need a civil war to end racism. That's stupid. That's stupid. And they're trying to say it's because George Floyd's death created an outrage. And because of George Floyd, where we destroyed cities, where we killed human beings for politics, where we had people that were kidnapped because of autonomous zones that broke every law in the nation, well, that's what we need more of. We need to do more of that. This is their article, and it came out June 19th of 2020. This has been the movement. We knew there was, again, 2018, we told you and showed you that civil war was something that people were concerned about. By 2020, we saw that the left was saying, no, we need to have this. We must have a civil war. And today, half of America believes that this is inevitable. And people like Kathy Griffin is saying, and it's because of all those evil Republicans. She is taking the words right out of the mouth of Joe Biden, saying it's the Republicans' fault. It's the Republicans' fault that in 2020, the left was saying we need to have a civil war. This is the same Kathy Griffin who decided to try and demonize a former president and anyone who might, the 73 million Americans who voted for that president. She has decided. She's made her choice. The D-list celebrity that she is has decided and made a choice for you that you must vote Democrat. Otherwise, there's going to be civil war. And I want to go over this comment real quick about it. This is what Kathy Griffin said on September 6th. If you don't want a civil war, vote for Democrats in November. If you do want a civil war, vote Republican. That's a threat. Now, I know some people may look at it and go, well, she's saying, well, Republicans are going to create a civil war. No, that's not what she's saying. Read this carefully. And I know that the kids in college who have been taught to use Grammarly to make sentences for you, you don't have the same English comprehension that you should. Should have been taught to you in 6th grade. Let's work through this. She says, if you don't want a civil war, pause. Vote for Democrats in November. She has said, if in that statement, she's saying, Democrats will cause a civil war in November if you do not vote for them. There is a consequence for your actions. That is what she has said in the first sentence. That you have been, that you have been threatened. You have been threatened now that if you do not vote the way that she has decided for you to vote, just like Joe Biden when he says you're not black unless you vote for him. They have made the decision for you, and you must obey. You must obey these figures of government. And she says if you don't do that, violence is the result. That her faction will be violent against you, that they will harm you. Hang on. Thank you for calling into the program. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I'm your host, Michael Voss. May I ask, what's your first name? Can you hear me there? Oh, sorry. Sorry. My fault. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry. What's your first name?
Jason.
Hey, Jason. I know it's you, but what's going on, man?
Yeah, so I actually just trying to do a catch up on some of your program there. I've been out all day, but
Well, thank you for listening in.
Yeah, you just started talking about the Civil War thing. And I don't know, I was trying to call up. I don't know if you mentioned or what specific factors are they trying to fight the Civil War for? What are the points? I mean, I know they say just vote, don't vote for Republican and vote for Democrat, but what are the principles that they're willing to die for? That's the question I have.
Okay, let me try and answer. The answer is they want power. If you do not vote for Democrats and socialism, then you won't get free stuff, and Republicans will continue to have the Constitution as it exists, and it won't be rewritten. That people will be able to have the Second Amendment and red flag laws will not, the states will not be paid for having red flag laws used against American citizens to take away their property and their families. That's what they're fighting for.
Right. So those are the principles, which basically that's what they want to fight about. Basically, people who want to have Second Amendment rights, and so they want to actually they want to go to war against people to take the guns away from them, and that's solely the principle that they want.
Well, look at everything you've seen in the news. Look at what Kathy Griffin is saying right here in tweet. She's made it clear no Democrats are saying that she's wrong. We've heard just a week ago, 8 days ago, we heard Joe Biden come out and say, if you have a different point of view, if you disagree with the way he is running the government without any plans, then you're evil, you're an extremist, and you're the problem. They have made it very clear. Am I misunderstanding anything in what they've been saying?
Well, as far as that goes, I mean that's blatant hatred against anybody with an opposing view. I mean, he basically defined what making America great is, and I know he tweeted out today. I was reading about it. Like, I mean, if you don't want to have abortion on demand, then you're pretty much a terrorist. And the only freedoms and only rights a person should be able to have is to kill a child is pretty much what they want, which ironically is something that's pretty much you're fully capable of doing in New York State. So he just wants to make, well, I guess his Make America Great Again is really to make every everything like New York State and I guess California.
Yeah, they want to go back to, they want to make sure that you have late-term abortions, to kill as many babies as possible, to make sure that children are indoctrinated. I pointed out the example earlier today. We have the YouTube shorts that are done, the J Rest Break, that are done by John Rastusha, which I love. And yesterday he was talking about Hassan Piker, who is dancing because the Queen died. The Queen of England died. No empathy whatsoever. A child saw that because that child watches Hassan on Twitch. And that child said that he wasn't sad because she was a colonizer. That's the indoctrination that's going on. And that's what Joe Biden's trying to emphasize, to use social media to get to children who are being taught applications of critical race theory, that white people are evil, black people are victims, and only the government can take care of it, and that anyone that disagrees is a colonizer or somehow a racist, like Kathy Griffin says, and that you should oppose them. That's what they are pushing for. That terrifies me.
No, it does. I mean, it's hilarious though to hear them say that sort of thing about the Queen when you basically compare, her, versus, Joe Biden, which is, I mean, blatant racist in the past. Well, even today, what am I talking about? I mean, my God, I mean, you're still not black because you voted for Trump.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
so it's like it's just insane. But yeah, I mean, the Civil War thing. I wanted to talk. Initially, I wanted to talk. I like that segment that you did. On the education and pretty much just the elimination of any sort of standards. Being put on anybody who happens to be black, brown, or anything other than white. And how, when I looked at that, and I constantly trying to scratch my head thinking, how can anybody be all right with this? And I think about what happened. When it comes to education, our education system, and it's just like, yeah, you have statistically, you see that, black and minority individuals are falling behind when it comes to overall academics, in the entire country. And what's the solution that the Democrats have, for helping bring them up to a higher standard and helping educating them? Basically, it's not to. It's basically to just say, hey, look, you know what? We're going to put you in a separate category, and we're not going to, have those standards as high. And so essentially what they're doing, in my view, is they want to classify anybody who has black, brown skin, or anything other than white and Asian as being disabled. And this gets not only politicians off the hook from having to push, policies that improve, people, in those communities, higher. It also gives teachers off the hook for basically looking bad in those communities, by not counting their, poor performances on a national, average.
Well, but
And
before you go further, I want to correct something.
sure,
And you're right. Yes, it does mask the poor performance and the failure of the education system by artificially changing the environment. And that's true. But it's not that they're trying to make blacks and Asians and any and every minority you can name disabled. They're less than. It is by definition saying they are incapable. Affirmative action, equal rights for women, feminism, intersectionality. At the core of every one of these movements, they are saying that you are less than human, that you are incapable of being able to make decisions in your life or having agency in your life, and you must rely on the government to have that agency that make those decisions for your life, for your benefit, because being one of these minorities, you are incapable of it. You are less than human. And that is both dangerous and insulting.
yeah, and it is. And the way that they get around it is basically they blame, systemic racism, and the systemic racism is the system itself is set up only for white individuals, well, and Asians as well too, because they perform highly when it comes to education. And the irony is, though, is just that when you look at this system actually setting up and being racist, the actual policies being put forth right here is systemic racism, because it's the government actually mandating lower standards for kids just because they happen to be black or they happen to be other than what they feel is a minority or so they classified in this lesser than.
Well, let me ask you as a parent, how do you feel that your child is going to be treated different than other children purely because of the basis of their skin color? That teachers and the institution of education, as determined by the government, a couple of elites in the government, have now decided that your child must be punished or artificially benefit because of the color of their skin, and they have absolutely no control. Does that make you feel good about the government? Does that make you feel more unified, or does it make you apprehensive?
The thing that enrages me, see, the thing is that I have a child with major neurological disability. So
well, I wasn't going to mention that, but yes.
Yeah, but no, I have to mention it just because the thing is my perspective, basically cuts, because I think, when I look at my son and his ability, to perform at a certain level, and how difficult, and how much energy I have to put forth to actually do the most minute thing. And I see the government coming through and basically pointing out on people based upon the fact that their skin is black, based upon, they have a lighter shade, and they basically are treating those children as if they are disabled and they can't actually perform. And what they do, though, is they don't actually try to to tap into the child's potential. Instead, they just basically go, well, you know what? It's too much work, for to push a black child so they can perform at a higher level, or a brown child. And the thing is, though, is that it has nothing to do with the fact that those kids are not capable. The fact is, though, is a lot of these children live, in cities and in governments which have democratic policies, which basically has created their socio-economical situation. So it's the Democrats' fault in the policies that led to, basically a lot of the breakdown of the families, the breakdown of the schools, the increase in crime, the increase in gangs, the increase in violence. All these things basically were created by the Democrat policies. And now once they create this situation, they want to turn around and basically blame, white, people or anybody who's, minority on their book, for the problem.
Because it's easy. That gives them power. Easy. It gives them power because and that is literally change the words. It's not Republicans' fault. They're not blaming Republicans. They're blaming Jews. This is straight out of 1939. This is the evil of World War II. I mean, you use the same exact words, the same logic, and changed it from Republican to Jew, and you get the same thing. And didn't we fight a world war saying that's evil and wrong?
No, yeah, it's disgusting. Trust me. The policies, entirely being implemented by, the Democrats, and the ideology and the path which they're taking, leads to a place of genocide, when it comes to it. Because the thing is that they're dividing individuals, based upon these, just skin, simply that is just simply skin color. I mean, there is no difference between, abilities of somebody who's black or somebody who's white. There's nothing there. I mean, their social economical, stance of where they come from definitely does. But the thing is that where, like I said, where how did they get in that position? I blame it on poor policy by the government coming down, creating those situations, and then so what do? They amplify and they add more policies, which create even more things. I mean, think about it now. Is that these how are these policies going to make anybody within their community rise up at all? If you're basically saying that, well, you know what, we're not even going to help you, jump over the bar. Instead, we're basically going to lower it so low that this is where we expect you to be. You're not going to be able to achieve the greatness or go up any higher. We just want everybody this level. And the thing is too, that's part of the socialist commie idea, is they just want everything. They want everything down. And then when you're lacking productivity or performance, and then what do? They turn around, and what they do, they blame those who have the ability to do something and then choose not to. And part of it is that their altruistic view on people's performances, as far as productivity and ability. They'll say, well, that's not inertly yours. It's not you. That was given to you. Or we build that. Or you didn't build that. We built that. That's the good old saying that Obama says. So everything you've ever accomplished in your life, your drive, your motivation, and your ability to go out and learn or work or do something, that's not you. That is the government.
Well,
that's they give you all that.
Right. Their answer is government is always the answer. You have no individual right. The government should decide and micromanage your life. And if you disagree, I'll give you another example of how they're reinforcing this, not on you and me, but on our children, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the 7th, 3 days ago. AOC says too many Americans hate women and would never let a woman be president. And she says in this article from ABC News, people ask me questions about the future, and realistically, I can't even tell you if I'm going to be alive in September. This is an article she has in September with GQ magazine. She goes on to say, and that weighs very heavily on me. And it's not just the right wing. Misogyny transcends political ideology, left, right, and center. This is the grip of patriarchy, affects us all, not just women, men, as I mentioned before, but also ideology. There's an extraordinary lack of self-awareness in so many places. And so those two are very conflicting things. I admit to sometimes believing I live in a country that would never let that happen. She's saying that because if you don't agree with her, if you don't follow her lead, then you are a misogynist, you are evil, you hate women, and that they can't succeed. It can't be that she, as a congresswoman, has never passed a single bill. No one, including Democrats, support her ideology, that she wants to destroy the Constitution. She said that herself, that she wants your stuff to pay for her bills because she supports the college loans. She makes $175,000 a year, but she wants you to pay off her student loan. Maybe it's that people don't like her, and we have the right as Americans to not like her or her ideology or every one of the bills and ideas she has promoted that have failed and have no positive outcome. But yet it's our fault that she isn't going to be president because we're evil, because she is, I don't know, an angel. That just doesn't make sense to me. But this is what they are pushing out there. And they're not targeting me. They're not targeting you. They're targeting your kids.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that this is the thing with AOC. Now, she just said, for one, being misogynistic. is a joke, because the thing is to be misogynistic, for one, you actually have to be able to define what the heck a man and a woman is. And
That's a
she
good
can't even
point.
do that.
That's a good
You
point.
know? And so, I mean, you're talking about misogynistic. In my view, misogynistic is basically the elimination of Title IX sports and allowing a bunch of guys, to go and destroy any sort of opportunity when it comes to college, scholarships for athletics, and allowing women, to go in their own lane without, they, without having to compete directly with men, And yet, whose policy is destroying that? Who's misogynistic? I say AOC's misogynistic. Why can't a woman be misogynistic? Tell me that.
They
Why
can.
can't she be? I define her as being misogynistic by destroying, women's life. And the thing is that you're talking about psychological confusion towards, girls and boys, anybody, because of the gender. They don't even know where the heck they stand anymore. They go to school, they're going both ways. I mean, they can't even figure out what proper pronoun to use for anything. I mean, kids are just like, they're just like, well, they're told to do whatever another person wants them to do because they don't want to be considered a bigot, Because no kid wants to be a bigot. Because you know what a bigot is? Because they've been teaching kids not to be a bully, and the anti-bullying. And so the thing is, now they combine the bigotry with the bullying and then the pronouns. And basically it puts kids in a place where they're just like, what the heck? What's up? What's down? I don't know which way to go. And then they're just like, okay, just slap me with some steroids, pump some estrogen into me, give me some of those, uppers, downers, or whatever, just to help them, center themselves. I mean, they don't have a clue what's going on, and it's destructive, But yeah, going back to AOC, and what she has, she doesn't define anything. She doesn't even know what gender is, Her nominee, or the person that she would put forth for the Supreme Court, she can't define what a woman is, And you want to know about the mental health of our country, basically it's misogynistic, people like AOC that is causing massive, health issues among actual biological, I don't even have to say biological, woman is, basically to me is a person who was born with, ovaries and everything that's a, XX chromosome. So just have to, state that. But she is the one, like I said, is misogynistic. She's the one destroying it, and it's politicians. And the thing is, too, we're going through that with New York State. I mean, they're going to eliminate, women's sports probably in New York State. If they haven't already done it, and I don't even know about it. Maybe they did, yesterday, last week. I don't even know if they already did that, But they're destroying, our country. They want to make everybody equal, everybody the same.
No, they don't.
It's impossible to do so.
Let me correct something there. They don't want you to be equal. They want it to be equitable. And
Equitable, yes.
you cannot have equality and equity at the same time. They are two opposite ideas. They do not work together. Whoops. Hang on.
Her own private flights wherever she wants to go in the entire country. It's equitable, for AOC to live in a, $1,000, or $500,000 apartment or something like that.
15,000.
That's equitable to her. So her definition basically suits her and her position. Misogyny suits her and her position. But if you really want to go by the definition, by what things are, it isn't equitable. It isn't, even. It's basically a totalitarian, position that she takes that says, I'm the dictator. You do what I like. You live and breathe the way that I fit, and that's the way the life runs.
Well,
and in the end,
it's not just AOC. It's not just AOC.
No,
let me show you. According to WCSC in South Carolina, Channel 5 News there is, I don't know if you've heard of Krystle Matthews, who's a current state representative there. Krystle Matthews, who is known for saying that Democrats should take money from drug dealers so that they can win elections, that they need to go in and vote in other parties, that they should change the votes so that they can manipulate elections. She said this. And this was when she said that in June 30th of this year, 2022. She said drug dealing money is good. She'll take it so that she could run, and she wants to manipulate the votes of Republicans. She most recently, as reported by Project Veritas, that she does not deny that she said this. She has gone on to say that white people need to be treated like crap, and that is the only way that they will listen, that she wants to manipulate her own voters so that she can win an election. And she does not deny that she said this. She does not deny that these are her words. She's saying, well, you just don't understand the context. And more importantly, her track record is more important. Her track record of saying, I want to take drug money to run for an election, and I need to treat white people like crap because they're not equal. That's what Democrats are supporting, and she is running in South Carolina. This is what they want to elect.
Yeah, and they're afraid, to stand, up it against her, And that's the thing, is a lot of these Democrats, it's a means to an end. They feel that, they should do those things, I mean, we're ever talking about, election integrity or anything like that. When it comes to the Democrat stance, it's like, as long as, like, for example, as long as Trump wasn't president, then basically it was okay, to break the law. It's okay to take money from drug dealers because, Trump is so bad or something like that, or the Republicans are so bad. So, whatever they do that's illegal or, bad, well, it's good that they do it because they are in the moral stance. Like AOC said, I mean, I don't need to be factually true because I'm morally, right. I'm morally superior, I believe, in things that you little peons, you just don't understand, and that's part of the mentality. That's how these people are coming up through the ranks, of the Democrat Party, because that's the sort of ideology and philosophy that they've been embracing on their end, and then their own party doesn't well, honestly, their own party has been scared to death in many instances to push back against that sort of thing.
Well, to be fair and to be exact about Krystle Matthews, back in June, Democrats supported her. June 30th, they were all defending her for taking money from drug dealers to run her campaign, and that she wanted to manipulate elections. They were okay with that, and they supported her because she was running against Senator Tim Scott, because she's a black woman, so it's okay that she says that. But now that she says that she is a complete racist, that she has a racist ideology and despises, apparently, white people, and then that she does not deny that she said, will not deny it. She says, it's her words, she said it, that they finally said, well, wait a minute, that's too racist. Now they have a problem with it. And her answer is, I'm running anyway because this is what Democrats want. These are her words, according to WCSC, live on Channel 5 in South Carolina, September 9th at 12:45 p.m., just to be exact.
No, I mean, I totally, agree with her position, her stance, because let me ask you this. What is the difference between her saying, that about white individuals versus every single one of these politicians that fully want to embrace, critical race theory? I mean, critical race theory is basically defined as what she just said. She just defined, critical race theory, except I guess, people on the Democrat Party aren't, that far, capable of embracing that wording of it, But
well, they don't like it being up in their face because there's no deniability to it. But again, this having these kinds of people, I believe, having these kind of people like Krystle Matthews, like Hassan Piker, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cori Bush, and so many other Democrats, Adam Schiff in California, and Joe Biden with his statements of defining people as evil, othering them, they're dividing this nation. We're getting closer to a civil war. This is pushing us towards civil war because the choice is either you obey Krystle Matthews, you obey AOC, you obey Joe Biden and these progressives, or else. And just like Kathy Griffin told us, if you don't, they're going to harm you. That's terrifying.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem with, the free information, or free speech on social media platforms, because in a lot of cases, what you would see is that people, outright coming out against somebody who's saying those things. A lot of times, Democrats would, push to eliminate, you know, eliminate the speech from even being happening. So basically, people would be forced to be indoctrinated into the belief,
Well,
of what
there's
he says.
not going to be another option. You won't hear
No,
another voice. There'll only
you
be
can't.
one message out there. And I'm glad you mentioned it. The White House yesterday came out and made a statement that they're going to change Article 230. But the thing that's not being mentioned is Senator Blumenthal, Senator Coombs, Joe Biden. They're not going to make it more free. They want more censorship. They want government directly controlling what's said on the internet. Not that they want to stop Facebook or Twitter or YouTube from making the decision. They want it in the hands of the government instead. That's even worse.
Yeah, and look, they already have done it. Look at what the FBI, did, with Facebook there.
Yeah.
They basically said, hey, this is going to be disinformation coming at you somewhere. And then all of a sudden, what did they do? They suppressed the laptop, story with Biden. Why'd they do that? Well, I mean, the FBI told us to, not to push stuff because it's wrong. And so you already have, the government, institutions being weaponized to basically, to stop speech. And that's even before, the Biden administration came up with that one department of, misinformation.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is.
Disinformation Governance Board.
Yes.
Which still exists at this moment. They just redefined it and they've also pushed it out. But let me do this.
Yeah.
We've been on for a little while.
Okay. Yes.
And I do appreciate your calling in. I do appreciate the conversation. I think we brought up a lot of interesting things, some of them that I want to talk about. But I want to make sure if other people wanted to make a comment as well, I want to make sure they get their chance too. Was there any final thought you had, Jason, before about any of this, especially the potential of a civil war?
Well, I mean, look at the potential of a civil war coming down to it. The bottom line, too, though, is that, it's sometimes it's ambiguous to some degree. I mean, Democrats, leave it to more of a tribal kind of labeling rather than actually defining exactly what, their position is on things. Obviously, when you bring up guns, that actually is something, people could say, well, either I'm for it or I'm against it type thing. But in general, when they just say, well, Republicans bad, Orange Man bad, January 6th, and all that sort of stuff, it's like, and they try to encompass every single person who ever, voted, Republican as being that, in that group. Yeah, that's just, I mean, like I said, I don't know. I think there's definitely a civil war of ideas if you really want to think about it. And the bottom line is government has basically, been weaponized, against a certain group to shut down that. Actually, like I said, it is actually a war. It is a civil war of ideas, and the Biden administration is actually, I would say they're to some degree winning.
It seems so. I mean, again, that's why Krystle Matthews is a state representative in South Carolina and why she's running for the Senate. And she seems to think that all of her constituents are happy with her racism and they're happy to elect a racist, apparently. That's got to terrify people. But
It is.
I definitely thank you for the comments. You gave a lot of things for people to think about and talk about.
All right.
I look forward
Sounds
to your
good.
comments. All right.
Yep. Bye.
And so, folks, just like you just heard from Jason, you've heard from John Cordisco earlier, we look forward to hearing your comments from anywhere in the world about these issues because it's affecting everyone. And again, let me mention, for the rest of the world, these issues affect everyone else. If you're in Peru, if you're in Chile, if you are in India, United Kingdom, Germany, France, Canada, Mexico, places I know that that do watch this program, and the rest of the world, it's affecting you. Because if this takes root in America, it is being exported right now. There's a reason why President Macron in France has rejected critical race theory and is trying to stop that from being imported by our educators into France. There's a reason why there is a backlash in the United Kingdom from this progressive ideology. There is a reason why we are seeing people around the world trying to stop this, and why people in Chile reject progressive ideology as it's trying to reshape their government and their lives, because it is dangerous. And when people are given the option and see the facts in front of them, they reject it wholesale. So the more it becomes a feature of the United States, the less likely it is to be fought around the world. That's the problem. And that's why it's a worldwide problem. It is an America first problem because we have to deal with it here, but it's a problem for the rest of the world too. This is empowering China, North Korea, Iran, Russia. It is making them more powerful the more that we see people like this representative, State Representative Krystle Matthews, and her racism, and AOC and her racism, and individuals like Kathy Griffin and her racism. That only makes it more powerful for this to be a worldwide issue. And again, the White House, they're not helping. The White House is trying to increase the amount of influence that this has on you. I don't know if anyone paid attention. This is from the White House itself. This came from the White House on September 8th, 2 days ago. The readout of the White House listening session on tech platform accountability, basically redoing Article 230, which allows Facebook, YouTube, Twitter to be able to censor everything that you see and hear, which is something that we've opposed continuously. And the White House has said that we need the government to get involved to protect our kids by putting in place even stronger privacy and online protections for them, including prioritizing safety by design standards and practices, online platform services, products and services. They're going to do this to save the kids. The government has to step in, and they have to be in charge of determining what you can and cannot say, because they want to protect your kids. Now, like we mentioned earlier, Hassan on Twitter is teaching kids about socialism. He's indoctrinating children. So that's a problem. But we're looking at the government saying that the government's going to step in and make the decision. Hassan Piker's okay, but this channel, people who are conservative, who are Republican, who have traditional values, you're the problem, and they want to stop your voice. They're okay with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush. They're okay with Kathy Griffin. She's never suffered for her call to violence. Kathy Griffin said that, let me show it again. Let me show it again. Make sure that we all understand this very clearly. Where is it? Kathy Griffin said with great clarity that if you do not vote the way she wants, the progressive movement is going to be violent. She said that on Twitter. I'm showing it to you now on September 6th. Twitter did not remove this call to violence. They're not even acknowledging that she made a call to violence. The White House is saying, don't worry, we have to protect you from people who are complaining about what Kathy Griffin said. We have to protect you from people who are complaining about the blatant racism of Krystle Matthews. And it's all because we're going to protect your kids. Shouldn't that scare you? Hassan Piker can indoctrinate your kids. Krystle Matthews can spout racism and promote racism. Kathy Griffin can threaten you. Joe Biden can go on national TV and threaten you. And that's okay for your kids and for you. But God forbid this channel or others like us, like John Cordisco, Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, go down the list, Jordan Peterson, we raise a question about that and say, what are the consequences of that? And they go, well, no, that's crossing the line. You're asking a question. How dare you make a question? You are the problem. Let's go on. The White House also says that they have to remove special legal protections for large platforms. I agree with that. They should. We've been asking for that for a long time. But what are they replacing it with? They're replacing Section 230 with the government, not independent businesses. They're going to take away the protections. And by the way, these protections are targeting conservatives, not anyone else. And they're going to put in the government in its place. That's not in your best interest. The White House goes on to say that they want to increase transparency. Well, that doesn't help anyone. That's not the problem. The problem is not the transparency, although that would help. It would be nice to see how we are seeing these algorithms go through. We already know Twitter and Facebook and Google have appeared before Congress in 2018, 2019, 2020, and admitted that their algorithm is selective. It is designed to target anyone who does not spout the approved messaging. We have seen it. They have said it. It has been proven over and over again. So what's the increased transparency going to do? It's going to make the government step in and say, we have to take care of it for you. The government, this is a setup for the government to take over the internet. And they want to stop discriminatory algorithmic decision making for liberals, not for us. It's not an algorithm, it's not discrimination when Kathy Griffin goes out and says either she has something offensive like a beheaded president or threatens violence. That's not a problem with algorithms. They're happy to allow 29,000 people to like this. They're happy to have 4,000 people retweet this or to 6,500 people to quote tweet this. They are happy for this to be spread around. They're not worried about Kathy Griffin inciting or trying to incite violence. They're not upset. Essentially, they're not upset with the problems with Krystle Matthews that they've known about. They don't care that she's going to get money from drug dealers or that she's trying to manipulate elections, as she admitted on June 30th of 2022. No. And that was reported by ABC News. Not the left, not the right wing. This is ABC News, mainstream left-wing news media. She admits it. They're not going to stop that. They're not worried about her racism. They're worried about, well, how dare the Supreme Court decide something's constitutional or not? They get to decide that. They get to decide what activism is. It doesn't matter that there are activist judges out there like Ketanji Brown Jackson who decided that every single person of color that came before her as a judge got a lower sentence than everyone else. It doesn't matter that she was releasing child abusers back into the public far sooner than any other judge would possibly do. These are people who were convicted and guilty, and she released them into the public faster than any other judge that is her peer. But that's good. That's not activism. That's social justice. And Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, they're happy about that. They're not going to restrict that. They're going to restrict someone who questions that and says, wait a minute, why are you releasing child predators? What's that? Someone who can't define what a man or woman, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kamala Harris, can't tell you what a woman is, but they'll tell you that if you say something, it's misogynist. Like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they can't define what a woman is, can't define what a man is, but if you say something they don't like, well, then you're a sexist. Really? Really? Come on, folks. Let's think about this stuff. And you think, Mike, But it can't be like that. We knew back on November of 2020 that the Democrats have already said their position on censorship. The answer on censorship, as it was reported by Dianne Feinstein, that we heard from Senate Judiciary Committee ranking member Dianne Feinstein, came out and made her comments known about this. We heard about this from Senator Chris Coons, and we heard about this from Senator Richard Blumenthal, that their belief is more censorship, not less, censoring you to protect their conservative, to protect their progressive ideology. It's terrifying, folks. Yeah, user has been banned says, it reminds me of that teacher telling her students to call them MAPS, which is pedophilia, essentially. It is terrifying. Okay, 1 second, folks. I need a quick break. I will be right back. I just need to take a quick break here. So we're going to go to, here we go. This should start.
Who has done a great job in spreading a conservative message all across New York State. He's got a podcast that those of you that haven't listened to it should give it a try. Mike, come on up. We're going to hear from Mike Vasquez. Mike Vasquez, say hello to the crowd. Let's give Mike a warm round of applause.
Before I get started, how is everyone? We're doing well? Thank you. I want to start off by saying I thank you all for being here. It's very important, and we all appreciate it. We appreciate the support, especially on a nice warm day like today. Gotta love the wind, thank goodness for it. And I have to say, we've heard from some great speakers so far, and we're going to hear from some more great speakers, including my friend, Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney, who's going to be speaking very shortly. Now, when I was first honored with an invitation to speak before this great audience, with a list of fellow speakers of such a great magnitude, I have to admit that I was a bit embarrassed, if I may be direct. I was not sure that I was worthy of such an honor, but I'm going to strive to live up to the ability and communication of my fellow speakers. Such great, noble, and powerful individuals in the fight to defend our Second Amendment as it defends all of our rights in this nation. Truly, I am grateful to be on this stage. That said, I'm not at a loss for words of my own. For those of you who have followed my political commentary, my podcasts, my speeches at events like this, large and small, you know that I believe in two things very strongly. That the key to the greatness of our nation is the fact that we have the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. The first because it protects our freedom to speak about things that some may not like, without hate speech or inciting violence like Black Lives Matter.
All right, we're back. Thank you for holding on for the quick second there. I apologize, had to quick step away. So let's think about this, folks. We have seen consistently that Democrats and the progressives have told us they want to take over the internet. They want to have censorship to silence people who, if you're black and you vote for Republicans, well, then you're not black and you need to be censored. That if you disagree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez becoming president, well, then you're a misogynist and you hate women. That if you dare question Krystle Matthews for her racist or repeated racist statements and her willingness to break our system of government and our election system, that you're a racist. That's your problem. That if you don't agree with equitable grading, you're a racist. That if you dare to vote any way other than what they are promoting, well, then Kathy Griffin has told you they are more than willing to use violence. And we see in Illinois and in New York State that the government is going around knocking on people's doors to enforce red flag laws to find a reason to take away your Second Amendment rights. And by the way, they're going to get paid for this. They're being incentivized to take away your rights because you, well, if you are anything like a MAGA, if you believe in making America great, if you believe in America First policies, if you believe in anything that is not the approved messaging coming from CNN and MSNBC, well, then you are an extremist, you are evil, and you have to be silenced. You have to be punished. Again, that punishment's not just physical violence, as Kathy Griffin has said, as we showed you, but it's also in taking away your rights, like with the red flag laws that have never been able to and never were designed to stop gun violence. They have been designed to take away your rights. They have been designed to take away your freedom. And we have shown you that over and over again for years, since 2018. For years, we have been showing you that that red flag laws will never protect you and never were meant to protect you. They are meant to take away your rights. And now that states are being paid to do this, they are incentivized to more actively take your freedom away if you speak up, if you vote the wrong way, if you're doing anything they don't agree with. If you believe in the Supreme Court, then you're just as bad, according to Kamala Harris. So, and the only reason why Kamala Harris is showing back up, she's not telling you about the southern border and how she's fixing the problems down there. No, she's only showing up to bring back the abortion issue because she wants to have late-term abortions. She wants to see babies killed. She doesn't believe in the rights of a baby, Kamala Harris. This is very clear, and this is the only thing that I can conclude from this. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. But when Kamala Harris says she doesn't believe in the Supreme Court, she wants to break an entire third of our government, of our law, of our foundation as a nation. She wants to break it. She doesn't believe in the integrity. She doesn't believe in the activism because they didn't say what she wanted them to say. And because of Roe versus Wade, she wants to kill babies who have a right to life. They are an individual separate of the mother. And at late term, at the moment of birth, she wants to be able to kill those babies regardless of the rights that they have, even if they can live outside the womb. And she wants you to believe that women across this nation all have lost every single right that they had, even though it has been months now and not one woman has lost their rights. Not one gay person. Remember, they told you LGBTQ, you're going to lose your rights. No one's lost their rights. That they're coming after you next hasn't happened. That somehow you're going to be put back in chains hasn't happened. No one suggested it. No one's even looking at that. The only people who are trying to restrict your freedoms and your rights are Kamala Harris, are Joe Biden, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Krystle Matthews. These are the people who are trying to take away your rights, your freedoms. Even when we heard from earlier from John Cordisco in the Cordisco Corner, what is the left doing? They're attacking him. Why? Because he said that Herschel Walker is winning in polling, that he might win an election against John Warnock. Both of them are black men, but Herschel Walker isn't black because he's a Republican. Again, you are being told what you can be. What are the limits? They are defining you under their terms. And if you disagree, if you dare question, you're the problem. How does all of this division not lead to civil war? Now, hopefully it's just a civil war of social ideas, social ideology, that the way we live, whether it's on the internet or interacting with each other, hopefully that's the civil war we're going to see. But according to many of the left, that's not it. They're looking at violence. They've been taught that violence is okay if someone uses a microaggression. Well, that is violence. And if a microaggression, something that you did subconsciously because you cannot control it, because you are born evil or a victim, if you can't control that, well, then what are they going to do when you do something that they consider a macroaggression, like vote MAGA? because you believe in America first, because you believe in America being great, you believe in the Second Amendment, what do you think those same people who have been taught for decades on Twitter, on Twitch, by people like Hassan Piker, or in schools like various teachers that are pushing their personal sexual orientations on children, what do you think people who've been programmed like that, what do you think they're going to do when they have a macroaggression of you disagreeing? That's what's dangerous. And they're trying to export this ideology to other countries. They're trying to push that in the United Kingdom. I know everyone has focused on the Queen and the death of the Queen. And we should. It is a sad moment. And I do give my condolences to everyone in the United Kingdom and everyone who loved Queen Elizabeth II. It is a sad thing to see anyone die, and we do empathize with that. Unlike many on the left, we have empathy for the loss of individuals that many love. But we're not paying attention now to Liz Truss. She's now the Prime Minister of England, and she's going to be working with King Charles III. King Charles is a proponent of progressive ideology. King Charles is a proponent of green energy, the debacle that has not helped him, that has resulted in blackouts in California, that has resulted in higher energy costs for the entire world. And so what is King Charles going to be saying to Liz Truss, someone who is trying her very best to be a rhino and to appease the far left by having an all-woman cabinet, not because they're the best people, but because they're the only people that she would choose, because she's virtue signaling. And if that's happening in England because of the influence from the United States over the last 2 decades, how far behind is France, Germany, the European Union? What about in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the rest of the free world? And God forbid, think about what's happening in the second world and third world nations out there. What do you think's happening in Ghana? Remember, in Burkina Faso, what did we see? ISIS came in and overthrew the government because of Joe Biden, as a direct result of giving up Afghanistan to the terrorists in the Taliban, who opened up the gates and let them flood on back out. But we, they say, are the bad guys for pointing out the facts to you. Again, we show you, and at the end of the show, links to everything we've been talking about will be made available to you so that you can see it for yourself. We use almost entirely left-leaning sources so that you know what the left is reporting, and all we're asking you is consider, what's the consequence? What happens next? It's a terrifying thought. In 2018, as we showed you earlier in the program, we first thought about the Civil War, the potential of a second Civil War in America. And at that time, we told you we were maybe 7 years away from potentially having a civil war. Well, we still have 3 years left on that initial belief that within 7 years we could have a civil war. We're 3 years away. And today we would say that's still accurate. What we saw in 2018 is what we are seeing today. In fact, it is magnified and amplified. We have more teachers trying to indoctrinate children. We have people on Twitch like Hassan Piker who are trying to indoctrinate children. We are listening to politicians who are actively saying that they are racist and segregationist and that they want to manipulate your vote. And we have Joe Biden using the full weight and power of the government to demonize you for daring to question what he has to say. And that same government is now turning around and saying they want to take over Section 230. They want to take over the internet and your access to information, to control what you hear, what you say, and who you can speak to. Civil wars we've seen civil wars across the world for far, far less than any of these things. Hell, they just had a civil war, a civil riot, and an overthrow of the government in Sri Lanka because people were hungry, let alone everything else. In Panama, it's because people are hungry and their energy prices are too high. We have a third of Africa that is rioting at this moment just because of the price of fuel and the price of food. And in America, as we are going into the winter, we are looking at higher inflation, higher interest rates. So higher inflation, higher interest rates, higher energy costs, less food, which means higher prices for food, all happening at the same time. And while we have progressives demonizing people for daring to bring up these questions, as Democrats are running as fast as they can from these questions. They are hiding it as best as they can. They don't want you to talk about Krystle Matthews in June 30th when she said, yeah, drug dealers, give me your money. I'll represent you. That she was looking to represent the people who would pay her and be paid off by drug dealers. They didn't want you to talk about that. Josh Riley in the New York 19th and Antonio Delgado, formerly of the New York 19th before he had abandoned it, they don't want to talk to you about the Americans they abandoned in Afghanistan. How about the Americans that have now been abandoned a week and a half ago in the Ukraine by the Biden-Harris administration? They don't want to answer that question. How about asking every Democrat that is in Congress, in the Senate, that are in the White House right now, what is your plan for the food shortage that starts in October that will last 1 year? 40% less food in the world. What is their plan to help American citizens? Oh, I know. They're going to redistribute wealth. They're going to write checks that they don't have the cash for, increasing inflation. They're going to take away your debt in college that is going to be put on every American's back, increasing inflation. They're going to make more inflation to take care of the inflation and the problems we have right now that they created in the first place. And if you dare to question that, well, you're evil, you're the problem. I don't agree with that. I think you're great. I think you should question these officials. I think you need to demand from them answers. Josh Riley, if you want to be in the New York 19th district, and I'm pointing you out, Josh, because I know you. I've met you. You have my phone number. We have talked for years. So Josh Riley, the Democrat running for the New York 19th district, who promised to come onto this show and answer the questions I have, Josh, I'm talking directly to you. If you want to be elected, you better have an answer. You need an answer for the public, not just to hide. And I know that Politico thinks that you're doing fantastic. Politico says, hey, look, this is a problem that, you could lose, according to Politico. But Josh, you still have to answer the questions. You're here to represent the people. And this is a question that can be said in every state across the nation, every Democrat out there. There's a reason why they're looking at a landslide loss and why they are terrified of you daring to answer or to ask the question, why should we elect these guys? Why should we continue down this path? Why should we double down on this segregation, this division, this demonization of American citizens for exercising their First Amendment right? It terrifies me. Now, again, as we have said throughout this entire program, and we will say it again, we're not telling you that you have to believe us. Just because I'm black and Hispanic does not mean that I cannot be questioned. Although if I were a progressive, that would be the answer. No, I'm a Republican. I believe in questions. If you don't agree with what I've said, if you don't agree with the conclusions that we've made, and so many people have commented on, the people who have called in, if you don't agree, tell us why. Give us a reason. Why is it the only person that I've seen that have made comments recently in the last couple of years is a child who watches Hassan Piker. It's amazing. I get bots and a child, but Democrats who are in elected office refuse to answer the questions. Instead, they hide behind, you're just a racist, you're just a sexist, you're an islamophobe, I can't talk to you. Really? Is that the best that you can do? And apparently it is. It's kind of embarrassing. Why should people vote for this? Why should we vote for people who are trying to divide America and create, and I honestly believe they're trying to create a civil war. And they're trying to expand that and create political wars in other nations as well. The United Kingdom is a great example of that. That all of this hate that has been created here in the United States is being exported, and in the United Kingdom, they're suffering from it just as much. And that's sad. And that means it gets into Europe. And that's why we're seeing it in Australia. We're seeing it in New Zealand and in Canada. And from there, it's filtering to the rest of the world. This is dangerous. That doesn't mean I agree with, but I can tell you, it doesn't put us in favor of China or North Korea or Russia or Iran. They're just further extensions of this same ideology, this same authoritarian point of view. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think it's entirely different. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear the counter to everything that we have presented to you today. And yet, we never hear from people like Josh Riley. We never hear from Antonio Delgado, appointed Governor Kathy Hochul. We've invited them onto this program for years. We are more than willing to give them as much time as they need to answer any of the questions that we have presented. And we will provide it to the public verbatim, as we always have, and they know that. And many of these people have our phone number. They have been in our studio. They know us for years. They know they will be treated with respect, but they will be asked for an answer. And they are so terrified of the answer, they won't respond. They hide. That tells you a lot about their character and what their policies are. They're not in your best interest. At least I can't see how they are. But if you do see how they are, please call into 607-242-1582. Tell me, how is this good for you? How is anything that we have discussed in terms of what's happening to the economy, our education, our politics, voting systems, just the way that we look at each other and what's happening to the censorship on the internet, if you think these are positives, please explain how. I'd be happy to hear it. But we don't hear that. What we hear instead is, well, you're just an islamophobe. That's the automatic answer. Oh, we don't have to answer you because you're an islamophobe. We don't have to give you a reason. We just have to give you the talking point that CNBC and MSNBC and ABC have put out there. We don't have to actually address the issues. We don't have to fix anything. That's terrifying, folks. Users and band mentions, it remind, no, I did cover that. I don't know, folks. I think we're going to go about 3 more minutes here. It's scary. Now, even as we speak, we know that Chile has rejected the progressive ideology. We know that right now Sweden is voting on whether or not they believe in the progressive ideology. And the voting, as of 33 minutes ago, is too close to tell. Give me a second, I'm just checking the news. According to Reuters, 33 minutes ago, Sweden's election too close to call as partial vote count puts the right in the lead. It appears that even in Sweden, the public, when given a choice, have said they want to reject the progressive ideology. They want to reject progressive politics. That's a good sign. But guess what? Sweden isn't leading the charge on progressivism. The United States is. And even though Chile has rejected the progressive ideology, Sweden, it appears, is about to reject progressive ideology. The United States, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Squad, Adam Schiff, Krystle Matthews, Josh Riley, they're pushing the progressive ideology as far as they can. If we don't fix this at the root, it spreads. It's a poison. And if we accept the excuse that is given to us, that if you don't agree, you must be an extremist, we will see a civil war of some form. It's coming. Yes, user, I agree with you. I truly hope that Sweden rejects this. I hope, because we are starting to see the counterculture. We are or rather the counterbalance. We're seeing the pendulum swing back, that around the world, people who are free, or at least somewhat free as compared to America, that they are saying, no, we can't keep going down this path. The consequences are devastating, both to them and the world. This is making the world less stable. We have to stop this. I hope they will. I hope that the left in America, the progressives, the progressive leaders of tomorrow, Citizen Action, Democratic Socialists of America, especially the Ithaca chapter that believes in violence, that they will stop this self-destructive path. I hope so. But I don't know that's the case. So let me ask this question again that we've been talking about throughout this show. And I'm going to type it out for everyone. Do you think there will be a civil war in America in the next 5 years? A simple question. And what's more important than the answer is what happens if you're right. What happens to America? What happens to the world if you're right? It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. I'm not picking on anyone. That's not the point of the question. The point of the question is to ask you, what happens next? What happens if there is a civil war in America? What happens if there isn't a civil war in America? That's the question we need to address. Quite honestly, it's not important whether or not you think that there will or will not be a civil war. It's what happens after that. What is the next consequence? Are you ready for that? Is America and the world ready for that? Because I guarantee you, everything in the world changes if that happens. And everything in the world is changing, sadly, negatively, even if it isn't. User has been banned says, I call them Neo-Socialist Democratic American Party. Yeah, I can understand why you would say that. I get the little wink there. The Democratic Socialists, yeah, that's scary. And user also goes on to say that it depends on how things go in the next 5 years. If they continue to push the ideology as hard as they have and normally see drag kids more, it will happen. Mike Bowie says, from the beginning, the left wants chaos. I think they do. I think that this is part of, they think, that in the Saul Alinsky ideology, that they get chaos, and then from that chaos, they will be able to get socialism. I think it's terrifying. Jason mentions that he thinks it depends on how you define civil war. Well, and that's a good question, because earlier in the show, John Cordisco, when he called in, he defined civil war as a social event happening on social media, in our social culture. I don't separate any of that. It could be social media. It could be a social ideology. It could be political. I think they're all the same. Civil war is not limited to just physical violence. There's more than just that. We're fighting battles on many levels. Jan says that unfortunately a civil war will tear this country apart even more. It's so hard to say what good will come out of it. It is hard, but we need to consider that. Because if we don't consider what happens next, that's worse. Because Saul Alinsky might be right. If we don't plan for that, if we don't prepare for that, then maybe we do get the socialism that Saul Alinsky always promised. And Jason says, with my definition of what a civil war might be or how it might be defined, that we are in it right now. We could be in the beginning stages of it. I think it gets worse. I think you're looking to see in the near term that Joe Biden follows up his Reichstag speech in Philadelphia with action. That we may see after the November 2022, Democrats, win or lose, are going to go into a lame duck session. And by January of 2023, they will try and impose their will, whether by changing Section 230 or by instituting red flag laws across this nation. They're going to try and strip away American citizens' rights and freedoms and claim that it's good for you and punish you. I think that's what's going to happen. That they are so desperate. They are seeing that they are losing their grip. Sweden is rejecting progressivism. Chile is rejecting progressivism. That over 40% of Americans are rejecting, the majority of Americans are rejecting their socialist ideology. They are losing their grip. And they know that they've got 10 years before the kids in school today are going to be able to vote. So they are losing their power. And I think they will take action to try and punish the rest of us while they can. Yes, and that's what Mike Bowie says, that, well, the progressives always turn to violence when they lose, and they are losing. Well, that's true. We saw that in the Summer of Love in 2020. That's what we saw in the autonomous zones, when we saw them burn down Minneapolis and Portland and Seattle and Atlanta and killed a child, an 8-year-old in Atlanta, because of their progressive ideology. Yeah, and that's what Kathy Griffin has promised. So maybe you're right. And it scares me. Let me add one final thought about this. I truly believe that after the election, Democrats are going to start talking about the 25th Amendment. They're going to start talking about making Kamala Harris the commander-in-chief, to put her in the White House in place of Joe Biden. And that'll happen in January of 2023 because she's a woman of color. And she's a woman, whatever a woman might be these days. And so they're going to try and push her. And we know that she doesn't believe in the Supreme Court as it exists. Joe Biden doesn't have the balls to push through court packing. Kamala Harris does. Joe Biden doesn't have the balls to put in martial law or to censor the internet. Kamala Harris does. And she doesn't believe the Supreme Court should or can stop her. And she doesn't care that the southern border is wide open. She hasn't done a damn thing about it. She doesn't care about Americans. She cares about her political ideology. It's one of the reasons why, when given the chance in 2019, 95% of all Democrats rejected Kamala Harris, even though she was a woman then and she's a person of color. They still said no to her. So when she gets the chance to grab the reins of power, she's not going to want to let that go. I do not trust her. I do not trust what she will do. And she's going to be there in January 2023. It's a prediction we've made on this channel before, and we hope most of the predictions we make on this channel, if you've been watching us for the last 15 years, we're not usually wrong. I hope this is something we would be wrong about. Truly, we want to be wrong. I want to be wrong about the recession. I want to be wrong about stagflation. I want to be wrong about Kamala Harris taking power and then trying to institute martial law and civil war in America. So the comments coming back are, Jason thinks that Republicans will try to impeach Biden because, and it will make the Democrats look like victims for 2024. I don't think so, because Hunter Biden and his problems that directly affect Joe Biden, there's collusion there. I don't think American people, when given the evidence, will agree with that. I don't think that Democrats will look like victims. Progressives will think they're victims because progressives don't care. They want their ideology no matter what. But I don't think the average Democrat, if given evidence, if shown the connection between Hunter Biden and China and Hunter Biden and his father, the corruption that is surrounding Hunter Biden and the protection that he has been given by the FBI and others for violating law after law that connects directly to his father, I don't think the American people will see Democrats as a victim. Progressives don't care. User has been banned says, after reading the Prince, Machiavelli's The Prince, which I do recommend to people, wonderful book, but also read the treatises by Machiavelli. Really important stuff. Kamala will likely hurt herself and her party more than anything, not without everyone else, of course. Can't say you're too wrong on that. User has been banned says that he doesn't see Kamala Harris being smart enough to take the advice of the prince. I don't think most modern progressives actually pay attention to that. By the way, for those who have never read this, The Prince is a book. It basically is one of the foundations of modern politics today, written by Machiavelli. And I think it's really worth it because it explains how to balance power, even for the most ambitious of people, how they can maintain power and benefit the public while doing so. It's a great book. I do recommend it. It's not very long. It's not hard to read. It's kind of like Sun Tzu's The Art of War, except it's all about politics and not warfare. I do recommend it. So I do think that's important. I just don't trust her. Maybe it's just me. Maybe some people disagree. That's okay. Okay, we have about 3 minutes left. I want to take a moment and I want to share with everyone an update on our thank you to everyone. So let me share that with you. Nope. Come on. There it is. I know you've heard it before. What difference does it? You make the difference. When you watch, chat, tweets, your likes and shares, and your subscription, you make the difference. From across the world, you help us to keep the lights on and the stream alive. You are making the difference to fight the woke and the crazy legislation that we see before. We at No Soundbites Allowed, and I want to thank you for everything that you do in helping us reach our goal, and your likes, your tweets, your comments, and your subscriptions to the channel. We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. And this is a special thank you to those who have donated to the channel and helped us in all of our efforts. We will strive to make this channel the best that we possibly can, because you deserve no less. Thank you. That's right. So, and if you were wondering, and if you may have noticed it, yes, that list is growing. And we truly appreciate the fact that that list continues to grow. And we love our supporters. We thank you, each and every one of you, for being part of our audience, for taking the time out to join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the issues that matter to you from anywhere in the world, to hear your comments about all these issues, to tell us what you think. Because I know it's getting harder and harder. You know, we're seeing Section 230, we're seeing progressives, the Biden-Harris administration. They don't want you to speak. They don't want you to think. They want you to obey. We want to hear your thoughts. We believe in the First Amendment. Even if your nation does not believe in it, we on this channel believe in it. Even if the internet overlords want to try and silence you, on this channel, we will always hear you out in your phone calls, in your tweets, in your chats, to hear what you have to say. Whether you agree with us or not, we will always listen to you. We always value what you have to say about any and every subject that's affecting the world and America, because we value you. And so we do hope that if you can, take the opportunity, like, share, subscribe. I'll put it up on the screen again. That we ask you just to like, share, and subscribe. Let others hear about this. Let them come up with their choices, to leave their comments and their thoughts about what's happening out there, and to join us every Sunday. All we ask, subscribe. Let us use the algorithms to be able to reach more people, to hear what more people have to say. And if you choose to, it's up to you. You can, of course, donate, and that helps us keep the lights on. It helps us do this program, because we're not MSNBC. We're not the Young Turks. We're not bought and owned by major news media or any of the political factions out there. This is an independent channel. So every dollar that you donate helps us immensely, and we do thank you for that. But it isn't required. Just like it's not required. Just because I'm Black and Hispanic doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that we have to say. We just want to have that conversation with you, because we appreciate it. I want to thank our callers today, Jason and John, for calling in and sharing their thoughts with us. We want to thank everybody who left comments there, Jan and Mike Bowie. We want to thank User Has Been Banned, and Jason, and, oh God, everybody who watches this program, Hot Chicks, everybody out there, whether you comment or not, because we appreciate it. I hope that you're going to have a great week. We look forward to making more content for you throughout the week through our J-Rest Break, the 1-minute YouTube short videos that we provide out there, as well as our long-form political commentary. We'll be on every Thursday with the Rory Sauter Show. We are on every Friday with the Liberty First Foundation on their roundtable. And we will continue to make more content for you to be able to make your own mind. We hope to see you next week. We thank you, and we wish you the best.